Okay, you just do the best you can. If not, uh, you may need to restart. I see how. Okay, good evening, everybody. So we are going to start shortly. Okay, I am now also streaming live on YouTube. Let me just see where's the YouTube link. I'm going to give you the YouTube. Okay, it looks like it's on already, my YouTube. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to give you all the link to the YouTube. Okay, I'm going to start very, very shortly. Where's my thing? Wait, okay. Okay, I'm starting already. Okay. Okay, wait. Okay. Can you hear? Is that sound? Okay, guys. Very sorry. I some technical issue which I am sorting out. Apparently, it can't be. Hold on. Hold on. How does it go? Wait. Okay, wait. Let me see. Can someone help me? I don't know how to make this like second screen.
You want to make second screen what?
The
You want to make it appear here?
yes.
You're trying to share this or you're trying to see this?
Share that.
Okay. Try.
I need to share sound.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
Click share. You want to try again?
no, it's the wrong one. Wait. Sorry. Okay. Always when I'm in here, I always cannot jam. Okay. Oh, it's here. Okay, found it. Okay. So stressed. Okay, got it. Okay. Finally, we can start. I'm so sorry, everybody. It was quite stressful for me also.
This is how you make me feel. This is how you make me feel. Oh, good, oh, great sunshine. Oh, baby, this is how you make me feel. And I feel good.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us at Beyond Ice Cream. Let's Talk Policies, a citizens' town hall hosted by the Watchers Movement. Tonight, I'm honored to have with us Mr. Steve Chia, Secretary General of the Singapore People's Party. Mr. Chia has had a long and distinguished career in public service, and in 2001, at the age of just 31, he became Singapore's youngest ever non-constituency member of parliament. Throughout his political journey, he has had a passionate advocate for civic participation, transparency, and fair governance. In the spirit of open dialogue and nation building, we'll be hearing from Mr. Chia about the Singapore People's Party's key policies, his vision for Singapore, and his thoughts on some of the most pressing challenges our nation faces today. Mr. Chia, thank you so much for being here. Let's begin.
Thank you, Iris, for having me today.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chia, every manifesto touches on many important issues, but if you had to highlight just one key message that the Singapore People's Party stands for in this election, what would it be?
We want to bring balance to the parliament. We believe it is time now.
In your perspective, what is the most pressing challenge Singapore faces today, and what are the key policies your party is proposing to solve?
The key challenges facing many Singaporeans is the cost of living. This rising cost that is affecting everybody. We used to eat quality food in the past, but now people are telling me that they are buying cheaper ingredients, eating less expensive meals, going out to restaurants a lot less often, eating at home. They are basically reducing their standard of living just to stretch their dollar. This is a concern and a frustrations for many Singaporeans.
So, how will the SPP intend to solve this issue?
This is a global issue. We cannot say that we can solve the cost of living issue, but what we can do is to mitigate it by, as what we propose in our manifesto, making sure that the government do not overtax the people, okay? And the budget surplus that is accumulated, like last year, 6.4 billion, returned back to the people through the CDC vouchers, so that Singaporeans have this support partnership with the government, where in times of surplus, the government return back to the people, so that in the event in future where there's a need, people will be more willing to work with the government for bring a balance to the budget.
Okay, so your proposal is still continue with the CDC voucher lah, like for the rebate to, I mean the amount to go back to CDC.
Yes, correct. Basically, we want the a balanced budget. We don't want the surplus to go back to the reserve, and it has to be done every year. It should not be given only during election time, but every year that there's a surplus, return back to the people. Yeah, so that we have a balanced budget.
Okay. So, okay. Next, let's talk about the handling of COVID and the crisis and so forth. So, COVID-19 was, of course, a very defining moment for Singapore and the world, and many Singaporeans have had strong feelings about how the pandemic and the vaccination policies were handled. From your perspective, how do you personally view the leadership during the COVID-19 period, and what lessons should Singapore carry forward for future public health and crisis management?
Okay, COVID is unprecedented time. Okay, everybody know it's a global scale. Um, we were not there to criticize the government because we believe that in times of crisis, everybody needs to stand united together to overcome the crisis. There are questions about vaccine and usage and how the government forces the people to get vaccinated. Okay, we kept silent about all these things because we are not the medical experts in this area, and we also understand from the global knowledge that that is the effective solution at the time. It may not be the only solution, but it was one of the effective solution. And in a sense, we kept quiet about it. Yeah.
Okay, so what has SPP done between elections? Like one concerned, some concerned citizen, like recently there's been some, some jokes lah. People say, oh, this one is just more party or whatever. I'm not saying that you're not, okay, because of a history from Mr. Cham and so forth.
Okay.
But so some citizens will say, often during election, then all the parties that they never hear of come active. Could you share with us what the Singapore People's Party has been doing between elections to stay engaged with Singaporeans and how your party keeps itself relevant throughout the years?
Okay. If we are elected, we have all the resources of the town council and the people's support to run a lot of activities. But if you are not elected, you are just a man in the street. You are just a politicking. You are not a politician. You are trying to engage people to support you. And there's a limit. We don't have the resources, the manpower, or the money to do big things. So what we can do is to do house-to-house visit. So after the 2020 election, we have been going house to house. There are about 387 HDB blocks in Bishan Toa Payoh and more in Potong Pasir in the previous boundary. So what we have done is to make regular visits every week, okay, and or alternate week to do house to house, talk to residents, and bring our message across to them, and also to do market outreach. So if you go to the markets in Bishan Toa Payoh and Potong Pasir, most of the residents and hawkers saw us and meet us regularly and say that, oh, you are here again. Oh, you are here again. That kind of stuff. Okay. For HDB, we wouldn't be able to do that because we can only manage to cover the whole Bishan Toa Payoh estate 1.5 times in the 4 years because they are all about that huge amount of blocks and the limited resource that we have.
I see. Okay, so so why should the I understand that the SPP will be contesting in Bishan Toa Payoh as you mentioned, and you're putting a candidate Williamson in Potong Pasir. So for voters in this constituency, what would you say is the key reason they should choose SPP over other parties such as PAP or Lim Tian in Potong Pasir?
For Potong Pasir specifically, okay, is the ground of the SPP, is where SPP was born, okay, with Mr. Cham Si Tong. That is the historical root. So we have the ties with the residents there, especially the older part of Potong Pasir. And so we hope that the residents remember this connection and give us the support as to why vote for opposition and not the PAP. Again, it boils down to, first of all, you want the legacy to continue. And secondly, you want to bring about balance. You don't want too many PAP in parliament. In this term of election, the number of parliamentary seats has gone from 93 to 97. There is 4 more seats. Okay, so if you elect 4 of us in Bishan Topoyo and 1 in Porong Pasir, it's just 5. The PAP is only losing 1 seat. It doesn't cause damage to the PAP. As a matter of fact, they still get 90. Except for Workers' Party, they still get the same amount of seats.
So how can we be sure that the SPP will be bringing up, let's say, unpopular topics to the PAP because they are, they are very big and so forth. So let's say, for example, if information comes out that, certain things are wrong, let's say the vaccine policy is wrong or whatever, right? How will the SPP intend to hold the ruling party to account? Or like, would you all back down? I mean, like, what would you guys do?
Okay. The first thing is to ask questions, the courage to ask. And when I was NCMP, I asked a lot of questions. I put so much question out for the ministers to reply that they actually, I can't remember which minister that time, changed the parliamentary rules to restrict the number of questions we can ask to only 3. Okay. So every MP can only ask maximum of 3 oral questions after that. So the courage to ask questions is the first step. Okay, and we can ask supplementary questions from there, from the answer that they gave. Okay, like when I was NCMP that time, I asked about the white horse. Why is there white horse and were they given special privilege? And the minister that time said, the white horse policy is to make sure that they do not get special treatment. Okay, so they are identified as white horse and they are not given special treatment. Okay, I leave it as that as it is, and for Singaporeans to judge. So in the same way, we have to ask questions, thorough, correct questions for the minister to reply. And if their reply makes a mockery or make them look questionable, then we can develop from there. And Singaporeans will say, hey, this minister is not answering the questions.
Very good. Well, we should certainly hope that you'll be in Parliament to ask more difficult questions. Now, you have also been involved in politics for more than 20 years. So what keeps you going? Even though, although sometimes maybe feel tough and so forth, what's the thing that keeps you going? And do you encourage more Singaporeans to be a politician?
Okay, this is my 6th election. I started contesting in Singapore general election and when I'm 26. But as a matter of fact, I have been contesting election way earlier. When I was in the junior college, I ran for the student council. And then when I go to the university, I ran in the hall JCRC. And then when I went on to run for NUSU, become the SecGen and become the president of the Students' Union. So after that, I got into, when I started working, I contested the opposition. I also, in the general election. After that, I also set up clubs, running clubs and motorcycling club. And also every year we have election and I'm always surprised. So I don't know, it's the blood in me to always be involved in elections or I like to be in the position where I can influence policy and make good policies that benefit the people and the community. So this is me, and what keeps me going, I don't know, because like for me, I'm running I'm running long races, 50 kilometer, 100 kilometer, 100 miles races. It is very taxing, but when you have run say 80%, 120 kilometer out of 100 miles, you feel that, it's very tough, you're very tired, but then there's only 30, 40 more kilometers left to push. So what do? You just tell yourself, press on. The endurance, the mental toughness, the grit, you hold it in and believe that the end goal is there. You push and motivate yourself that you'll be successful one day. And I guess this is what keeps me going.
Wow, fantastic. So we are so that's almost I just have one last question, okay? So looking beyond this election, what is your personal hope for Singapore? 10 years from now? And what kind of nation would you like to help build for the next generation?
My hope is that we can have balance where the PAP no longer have the full control of parliament, where they do not control 2/3 of parliament. Okay, there are alternative parties in parliament that the PAP needs to work with if they want to change the constitution. Okay, and the opposition or the non-PAP, we call the alternative, are seen as the loyal opposition of Singapore, where together we work with government to debate policies and come up with creative, better ideas that help Singapore to go forward and that benefits the people. Like now, is the tariff is a crisis, okay, global crisis, the Trump tariff. But again, in a crisis, there is opportunity. In Chinese, there's 危机, 危险 and 机会. So in this sense, there is this opportunity in this crisis for Singapore to excel and do well. So again, it calls for creative thinking and creative solutions that we, the opposition, can contribute in the discussion and dialogue in the partnership with government, where we engage, bringing ideas from the public and the residents to the PAP in debate. Okay, because there is no group thing. Okay, there's no monopoly of wisdom.
Wow. So fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Chia, for joining us for this short chat on Beyond Ice Cream. I wish you success in your campaign. And on behalf of the SG Watchers, Singapore Constitution and Policy Watch Group, which is a newly formed group, I mean, just online, okay? We're going to register it later. But thank you for joining us and all the best.
Thank you, Iris.
Thank
I have a great time today. Thank
Thank
you.
This is how you make me feel. This is how you make me feel. Oh, good, oh, great sunshine. Oh, baby, this is how you make me feel. And I feel good.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, good evening, everybody. And I have with me now Mr. Meng from the People's Power Party. Let me just add in.
Hello, good evening, Iris.
Good evening.
Thank you for having
Yes.
me.
Good.
about
Good
the
evening.
others,
How's the sound, guys? Can you all hear? Are you able to hear properly?
Yeah. Can you hear?
Yeah, the feedback. Okay, everybody say yes. So,
Mm.
everybody, if you can help me to share this particular Zoom session, is being streamed on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok Live. YouTube is my YouTube link. Maybe I don't know whether Raymond can share it in the
Okay.
chat group, and it's on Raymond's Facebook streaming, and also on TikTok. It's on my TikTok at irisco11. Okay, so y'all can share the link and get people to come and watch this session. It will be recorded as well, and you can, after that, you can go and share it around. So today I am here with Mr. Go from People's Power Party, and
Okay.
there's a lot of
Where are my
important
guys,
things.
man?
Well, are you able to hear?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. Guys, y'all can hear? Okay, all right. So, now, Mr. Go, oh, what's that song? Okay,
Oh,
Mr. Go,
sorry.
I want to ask you, I mean, I know there's a lot of things, and the reason recently, supported your party because of the alignment of values and the policies that your party is representing. Okay, so I think, is there anything that you want to say before I ask you further questions?
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you, Iris, and all the effort that you have put in. I think among those vax, I would say pro-safe vax people like us, there are people who are actually not united yet. There's a Vex injured group, there's a Vex warriors, and your group, Healing the Divide, and I hope that everyone should come together and in unity, then we will get our message across, right? And I'm very touched that some of the people have actually contacted me and would like to actually help out for uh, spreading my message. COVID is over, but the injuries are not. The injured are not, right? So that's one part. And looking forward, the law have been amended as have trying very hard to get this across. The Infectious Disease Act, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry, I'm going to just share this because I think this was your slide yesterday that I want to share.
yes.
Yeah, I'm preparing just so that you can talk about the slides
Yes.
that yeah. Yeah, keep talking, sorry.
So the Infectious Disease Act have been amended. A lot of people on the ground do not know. When we walk the ground, actually they do not know at all. Right? They do not know. So when we talk to them, they were surprised and they really question us, really, oh yeah, really or not? And we have to explain a lot of times what is happening in the parliament without anyone knowing because nobody raised anything, objection, nobody debate about it, nobody, the mainstream media didn't even announce it as if it's just a minor amendment to the law. It is not minor, it's a very major. But before we go into that, let's talk about the informed consent that we are all for informed consent. We are not pigs. We are not chicken from the coop that wait for our master to kind of jab us whatever they want to jab into us. They are actually putting an mRNA vaccine into our food chain actually for the poultry, right? And that is the thought of it is quite scary. But nevertheless, we are human beings, right? We have our human rights. So for them actually to have such a law that says they can force us to take any vaccine at any point of time of the future in that pandemic, the thought itself is quite scary, right? Some vaccines are okay, right? Those are what for seniors and all that. Not as long as it's not mRNA, because I have no confidence in mRNA vaccine, right? The traditional vaccines are more or less okay, but if you want to try experimental vaccines, then I say no, no. But we have seen in the COVID period, even when the vaccines was not ready, because it's still under EUA, right? They still push for 100% vaccination rate, right? A few of us survived like us who took zero, right, are very, very few. But let's see the data because I'm concerned back then because of the data, the lack of data, long-term safety data. But now, after 3 years, I think 4 years after the vaccination program has started, right, we have a small range of data which actually give a very dismay view, right? Now, maybe we have a second slide that you see, right?
Yep. Hold on.
Now, these are the data from ICA, right? The custom data, immigration and custom data authority. The death data, because they keep the death and birth data. So this cannot 好笑 one. We have actually published this data in public, the press statement, but MOH did not mark us because these data are true. They have been proven to be true. As long as the authorities don't mark us, that means it must be true, right? That's actually a standard right now, right? But they have avoided totally to address our concern about this access data. In the past, they would say maybe they are due to some other things and all that. But when you have a 20% to 25% excess death, it is something that you cannot just brush away. Right? These are the data that we have up to, I think, 2024, mid of 2024, or beginning of 2024, sorry. Right. So we have a certain data to call for comparison. So 3 years before the vaccination, 3 years after the vaccination, 3 years means 2018, to 2020, right? Then 2021 to 2023. So is a fair comparison, right? So maybe we shall look at how this is a raw data, because in statistics we always like to have raw data. What the authorities like to do, even during my economics, when I study economics, uh, I found that they like to aggregate data so that the time series, the trend has been actually smoothed out. So you cannot see the trend. If you cannot see the trend, you cannot tell a story, right? They like to do this, but thank goodness we have a monthly data, right? Monthly data for each year, so we can actually see the trend, right? Maybe you can
Mr.
for another one.
Mr. Go, while you're here, right, I just want to, because I also have been observing the data, and I noticed that they do not have any data for people who never take the injection at all. Am I right? We are the control group, but somehow our
Yes.
data is not in MOH.
Well,
So they never
they
used to
did
ask.
not differentiate. They
Yes.
did not differentiate, right? A lot of data have been so-called smoothed out. For example, the data for cancer patient. It used to be every 2 or 3 years they publish yearly data, but now they publish a 5-year aggregate data, which doesn't make sense to me. We cannot see the trend. We want to see the trend, right? Nevertheless, these are the data that we have, and a lot of studies overseas who are studying Singapore data, because Singapore is very unique. We have a very high vaccination rate, one of the highest in the world, right? Although we are a small city, but we have the over 90% have at least 2 jab, right? So these are the data that come into light. Okay, let's see this the second data. This is our called assess all cause mortality rate, right? Now, how do I do this comparison? I compare to 2020. That means for each of the year, the vaccinated year, 2021 to 2024, 2023, I did monthly comparison. What are the assets as compared to 2021, right? And these are the data. So you see consistently, almost all of the months in these 3 years are in excess. Now in statistics, we always say 95% confidence level. What does it mean? For example, this month is May, right? So if I want to predict how many people will die this month, I always refer to the past data, took the average or whatever, then plus minus 5% to give me a gauge of the number of deaths this month should not exceed that unless there's extraordinary things happening. Right? For example, another pandemic, another COVID-2, for example, then you have more people dying. That will show a spike. But this is even when we have a subsided situation in 2020, 2022, and 2023, the excess death is still high, over 20%, 10%, over 10% to 20% per monthly. These are monthly data. Let me compare. So when this is very for people who do not like figures, it's very blur one. So I actually put it on the chart. Like you take a look at the chart. There come. Is it a chart? The next slide.
Yeah.
Yes, I compare a year-to-year comparison. That means the below trend is actually closely from the 3 years before the vaccination. That means 2018 to 2020. So you can see it's pretty consistent, even for the monthly. Only when for 2020, because there's a spike in the death when the COVID first landed in Singapore, before the masking came about. So actually it shows that masking actually works, okay, to prevent serious illness. Although it might not prevent a serious prevent infection. And the lockdown actually works, right? So from February to June, you can see there is a slight spike in death as compared to the last 2 years. That means previous years is 2019 and 2018. But thereafter, when we have a lockdown and a masking, universal masking, the death data is actually quite consistent. It goes in tandem, up and down together, right? It doesn't vary more than 5%. But if you look at 2021, it started to spike when the Delta wave came, right? When the Delta wave came, that's in September. Now, it started to spike actually after the vaccination program started.
I
It
remember
yeah.
actually September 2021, a lot of people took the booster already, and
Yes,
it was
correct.
correlated
Yes.
with the booster.
Correlation is not causation,
I
or
know,
else
I
you
know.
will pop up.
I know. I'm just saying
All right.
correlation, but I can still say it's
Yeah.
correlation. But
So this is
it's
for
very
2021.
scary.
Interesting enough. We are told that when you take the vaccine, you will actually reduce death, right? Reduce serious illness, right? Although we already know that it doesn't prevent infection and transmission. But the next narrative that came up when they realized that it's not going to have a herd immunity, which in April I already know. From this data, I already know that it's not going to give us herd immunity. There's another set of data, infection data, which are vaccinated and unvaccinated. We have a big control group back then. So we did not achieve herd immunity. It means that the vaccine is not effective in prevention of infection and transmission. Right? But they still continue to jab us like a belief that, oh, this is the only measures that we have that can save us. Oh, right? That is the mindset. That is actually that they did not, okay. In order to deal with a pandemic, there's 3 things that we must have. One is actually a fast testing kit that eventually we have, right? I think by June we have the small swab thing. You don't need the PCR swab, right? The second thing we need is actually early treatment protocol. It's not a cure. It's just that to relieve your symptoms and hopefully prevent the development of a further development of serious illness, right? To prevent a continuous series of serious users. The early treatment protocol is very important, but they totally neglected it. They did not want to do anything about it. They did not tell everyone, unlike some of the countries like India or even some places, they actually tell their citizens there are certain early treatment protocol that they can try. Whether opake or not is beside the point. Placebo actually sometimes psychologically works for you also, right? But in Singapore, they did not do anything. What they did is they stick with a already proven ineffective vaccine to push for vaccination. And that's the result in the next year, 2020. May we have a next slide? You see, the death data is horrendous. By 2020, the COVID pandemic is supposed to come hot, right? Subsided. So excess death from COVID infection is supposed to go down. But why are we having a consistently high excess death as compared to the last pre-COVID years? It is a very strong signal something is wrong somewhere. Whether the infection have a long-term effect or the vaccination have a long-term effect. That is the only possibility. That means a lot of people are kind of infected. I think should be more than 70% or 80%. Right? Then the only things change between the pre-vaccination period and after vaccination period is 2 things. One is infection of the virus, right? The other one is actually the vaccination itself. We do not know which caused what. Maybe both of them cause the same thing, long-term impact of infection and the vaccination. There are actually some research that says that actually it is because of spike protein, which exists in both in the vaccine as well as the infection itself, the virus itself, that caused this, but nobody knows. Now, this is a very strong signal that something is wrong, but nobody want to find out why, right? Nobody want to find out why. And a lot of other data are actually cannot get. I try to find, maybe they are somewhere. Maybe I'm useless. I cannot find the data about heart attack, incident of heart attack, whether dead or not. That's beside the point. Incident of having strokes, how many people having strokes? Incident of how many people having cancer, whether it's excess cancer as compared to the pre-COVID vaccination period. So this, if we have all this data, then we collate into, compared to the excess death, then we have a clearer picture what actually went wrong, right? But we do not have. I only have excess death, right? While we think that COVID is really behind us, by 2023, you look at the 2023 data, right? Okay.
Wow.
It continues to go up.
My gosh.
It actually peaked. The death actually peaked at 2023. It is mind-blowing. To a statistician, this is actually something seriously wrong, you know? And that is why when I know that by 2024, they want to continue to urge people to take the vaccine, especially those elderly, I was shocked. I mean, the authorities should be looking at the same data as we do. Like, how can that happen? How can that
Fact, I
happen?
think Singapore's access data is so high, right? 2023, we are one of the highest in the world access data. But when
Yes.
MOH always say that we have the lowest access data and access death, they always lump 2020 together. That is unfair because that was before the vaccine. And that was
Yes.
before anything was rolled out. We had one of the lowest access data, in the world.
So
we
when we
miss
look as a statistician, when we look at data, right, we must have one hypothesis. That means hypothesis to say maybe it got to do with COVID infection. That's why they put the 2020 together. Then compared to the other part. But if our hypothesis it says maybe it's a vaccine instead of infection, right? So I did something called averaging comparison. That means I want to see after 3 years after vaccination, the average of death compared to 3 years before the vaccination start. Because averaging have its a certain prediction values. So that's why I did the data set for that, right? Maybe the next slide, right? You look at the next slide. So I average out. These are the data I average for the monthly data. I average those 3 years before the vaccination, 3 years after the vaccination, and I get this. And the excess death is 20% on average. The red box you see, right? That's how bad it is. In other places like UK, when they have an excess death of about 10% or less, anything more than 5%, they are already screaming. But there's not even a bird singing in Singapore when there's a 20% excess death. What is going on? Not a single expert in Singapore have stood up and said there's something wrong and we must get to the bottom of this. Why? I'm not an expert. I'm only trained in statistics. That's all. So maybe you can look at the chart comparison. Chart comparison will give you a visualization that have a very strong impression of what happened, right? Maybe you have a chart, right? Let us look at the chart of this comparison. The next slide. Yes, and this is it. Even when we take an average, the trend doesn't look good. Right? I've stopped updating this last year. That's why you didn't see 2024 the full year, right? But according to my leader buddy collecting data for me, it came down a bit, but it is still not back to the normal. That means pre-vaccination period, right? It's still more than 10% excess death, I was told. I have not verified it, right? Because I need to verify all the data from ICA downloads. Now, these are serious signals with regards to life and death. This is about death. But no one in Singapore is talking about it except me and maybe Professor Woon. He actually looked at the same data set that says the same thing, that doesn't look good. Something is very wrong. If you talk about COVID infection that affect excess death, but other places like India have a lot of COVID infection, right? Massive. But they do not suffer such excess death. Why? That's a fundamental question. So by elimination, when the logic comes out as essential, by elimination, it must be due to something except COVID infection. And the suspect is definitely the vaccination. I'm not saying policy, because I'm not a scientist that do this, but biological elimination and deduction. There's two things, just like I said, right? Something changed after the 2020, right? It's actually COVID infection, high COVID infection, and vaccination. So we will eliminate that by, we call them intra comparison between countries. That's the only one that happens. Vaccination is a likely suspect, but we need further study. That's all I can say. But before they actually make clear what is happening with all this data, they push out this: no jab, you go to jail. Jab or jail, the next one. Right. I was quite shocked. Right. The next slide. Now, people do not believe on the ground that this is real. They say, government will not do that to us. I said, no, the law have been set, have been amended, and nobody in Parliament have raised any question about this. Section 47, if anyone can Google Infectious Disease Act 1976 Singapore, you will find a link, right? Then you go to Section 47. Clearly stated as is amended, I think it's 2023. It gives power to the Director General of Health, right? To have the power to declare an emergency of a pandemic, and he can dictate a mandatory order for everyone or a set of people to take the vaccine. That means not necessarily everyone on the island, but a certain group of people. Any group of people that decide, they rationalize, right? And then if you do not want to take, you may be charged. You'll be treated like a criminal and charged in court for a fine of up to $10,000, or go to jail up to imprisonment up to 6 months. Right? I cannot see whether you go to jail, they can forcibly jab you or not. I do not know. Right? That might be technically, no one knows, because it has not happened yet. The next pandemic has not happened yet. Right? So this is one thing. This penalty is actually listed in Section 65. Okay. And the next one give indemnity to anyone, including the Director General of Health and the officers who can break into your house to exercise certain measures, medical measures against you, or drag you out and all that. We do not know. It's not very, very clear about that. They will not take any responsibility. You cannot sue them if anything happened to you after you take the jab. Indemnity for all of them. Because it's presumed in this law that they have done this in good faith, forcing you to jab in good faith. That is the logic they
Ridiculous.
have.
It's
Yes.
ridiculous. That's why so draconian.
So I want to ask, when you give absolute power to someone without accountability or any possible redress if anything went wrong, what will happen? It's actually a medical tyranny,
Exactly.
right? Potentially turn into a medical tyranny in a pandemic situation.
Gives them it gives them absolute power. Come to your house, they can do all these things. They already did a lot already without all these powers.
Yeah. Of course, I saw some comment or VTO vote them out, put more opposition into parliament. But I can tell you, at this moment, to all my knowledge, People's Power Party is the only party that is very concerned about these rules, right? And only us are speaking out against it. In fact, I was reading today that someone went to another party to ask one of our candidates. He outright to say that oh, we support the vaccine. Then this guy obviously is a pro Vax guy who said, then I will void my votes. Then oh, void your votes, then you walk off. I said, how can you have such attitude? Aren't you concerned at all? The breach of a human rights? We are not chicken, we are not pigs, we are not poultry. Humans decide for the chicken to take the bird flu vaccine, right? Yeah.
Mr. Goh, I
Now,
want to confirm what you have said because I myself, I went around to various political parties. In 2021, I emailed to the Workers' Party also almost every week to many. I CC them all in my email. And I met with one of the Workers' Party member. After talking to him for 1 hour, he convinced me to take the vaccine. And the rest of the members never replied to me. The leader of the opposition did not reply to me on this very important human rights issue, which, I mean, basically we can all die, right? If you saw the excess death.
now,
So
I can tell you when we
sad.
walk the ground, we walk the ground. Most people are not so passionate about this vaccination issue. But when we ask them, no, will you take another jab or not? How many jab you take? 3 or 4? Will you take another jab? Or most of them, I think so far I have not seen anyone say I want to jab again. All right, I have not seen. They say no, no, no. Then we ask why. They say, oh, a lot of side effects or the friends around them have side effects, all sort of things or with suspected injury, right? Like death or strokes or heart attack. They know. People knows on the ground, but they say, "Po pian ma, have to jab to go to work ma." They are resigned to the fact that they are being dictated to do something against their will to their body. How did Singaporeans ended up in such a sad state without even have a thought of saying no? I'm not going to be jabbed again like that.
I mean, this is an
I do
issue
not
that
know.
actually affects all of us, but unfortunately, only the residents in Ang Mo Kio and Tampines have a chance to save all of us. And I encourage all of you, if you are staying in Ang Mo Kio, Tampines, to really vote for People's Power Party because they're the only party that is speaking up about this issue. And trust me, I've gone around, okay? I've gone
Now,
around talking to various political parties and
now I
Mr.
make
Goh's
3
here.
promises right here. If my party ever get into parliament, the first thing we will do we move a motion to repeal this amendment
Yes.
or amend it to such a extent that you must be very sure that the vaccine is safe before you go for a mandatory vaccination program, right? That's what I do. Most probably we will not be successful. The second step is to challenge this law in High Court, judiciary review, because without a status of a MP, you go to challenge this type of things, boing no 踩你都傻, right? So you have to get the attention about that. The third thing I'm going to do, because people ask me, hey, do you have data? No, I of course don't have data. The only data is always from the official data, like the SSDF, right? I was asked during one doorstop, the reporter said, you say, wow, you have so many side effects and all that. Do you have data? I say, first of all, Pfizer already in his report has listed 1,291 side effects, potential side effects. What data do you want? And some of them are very fatal, right? That's not for me, for Pfizer, the official document. The second thing is, it is the responsibility of the state, that means the government, to go and collect such data. Is not our responsibility. We do not have such resources.
Yes.
But if you want to say data, I can cite overseas data like Japan, even Korea. They have done some studies, right, about this, about the death, the implication of the vaccination on heart disease, then heart attack and strokes. They did such thing, a lot of other things. So if you ask me to provide data, under what capacity? I'm not the minister in charge of the health ministry, but Ong Yi Kang is the one. People should have asked him, did you really collect data? But I can tell you no, right? Because most of the vaccine injured or suspected vaccine injured, they just brush them away, nothing to do with it. There's so many stories about that on the ground.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to
It's
do when I'm in
fine.
my team get into parliament, the first thing we are going to do, we are going to set up our office to ask people who have suspected vaccine injury to contact us to record down. Then we will start to collate all this data. We will employ people, we will get the funding and employ people to do the compilation. You want data, I can do, but not without resources. I need the resources to do that. Right? And hopefully, if there's enough funding, we can try to use alternative method of treatment for them. Because the local authorities brush them away, actually is a psychological impact. Like what Charlene Lin faced. When she cannot walk, they say, oh, it's a psychological perception that you cannot walk, that's why you cannot walk. What nonsense. Because they cannot find anything wrong with him. We heard all the screening, all the tests. Right? Now, but in order for us to go into parliament, we need people to vote for us. That's the moment. In Tampines, in Ang Mo Kio. If you do not stay in Tampines or Ang Mo Kio, you can actually help us to canvass votes for whoever you know who stay in Tampines or Ang Mo Kio. Just try to convince them. Like, no harm to have a group of people to actually have a different perspective in parliament to provide that check. That's number one. Number two, we need a lot of polling agent and counting agent, especially counting agent. Right? Please sign up for our counting agent to help us to actually to make sure, right? No hanky-panky lah, right? To make sure the counting, the voting and the counting is done properly. That's the two things I have. Of course, the funding, we are still short of some of funds. We are still trying to raise the funds for another rallies. We have a third rally coming up tomorrow at Yio Chu Kang. We want to max out the rallies to have 4 rallies, our original plan, but we are still short of funds for that. Right? So I hope that your followers, your viewers will actually help us with that. That's all for my presentation. No more, right? This should be the last one, right? Yeah. Last
Let
slide.
me see. Yeah, because after that, yeah, this is the
Oh, this
other
one,
slide.
mandatory vaccination orders. This is the order. The exact wording. Right?
Yeah, it's very scary. And let me see, there are a few things. Okay, so there are a few more slides after this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing, which also, I've been speaking up for the last 3.5 years, the very reason is because of this, I feel is lack of responsibility. You want people to go and get injected, but yet you indemnify yourself, you indemnify the pharmaceutical companies. So we have to take all the illness if anything were to happen to us. That's absolutely irresponsible. And last time, even Lee Kuan Yew, when he was promoting the vaccine, he said the vaccine must be 300% safe. So I
Yes.
want to ask our government, okay, the PAP and all their medical experts, is the vaccine even 100% safe? If it's not even 100% safe, then we talk about 300% safe. I think that we should at least follow Lee Kuan Yew's standard, which is 300% safe.
Yes. Well, we Singaporeans are very passive, very passive. They do not fight for their own rights. They only
Yeah.
think about livelihoods. So it's quite disheartening when I'm leading my team to fight for this. But I also very heartening in that sense that there's still a small group, core group that actually supported us in this journey, right? But we really need. There's no time to spare. If we miss this round, the next pandemic is actually around the corner. If it comes, God bless us. I do not know what will happen to all of us, right? Who refuse to jab. I have zero jab right now, zero infection. But I do not know what will happen next. Right?
Okay.
So I do not know. This battle is an uphill battle. Derek will tell you, I think Derek Kimi, right? Derek will tell you that his Facebook is kind of hacked, right? Taken down because he talk about jab a lot. Because Derek Sim is very passionate about this issue. It's about governance, right? We are being
Okay.
targeted, right? So I shall leave you with this, right? I have not had my dinner yet.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Sure.
So
Feel
so
free to
I
go.
let Derek and all of them have talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Goh.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up, I have Chairman of People's Power Party, Derek Sim, who has got more than 20 years of professional experience spanning finance, leadership, and law enforcement. The law enforcement part, I was very interested because he was working as a career as an investigating officer with the Singapore Police Force, where he was specially selected for elite training with New Scotland Yard and the London Metropolitan Police and advanced investigative techniques. He has also earned prestigious commendations for his commitment to excellence. So, yeah, I mean, he's got other profile. You can see it from the People's Power Party website. But I will ask him to share whatever that he. I mean, basically, I want to hear from him. I was at the rallies and I heard some very important things which I think he should share with all of you. Okay, so maybe I pass the time now to Derek, and if you want me to play the video, it's all ready for you. Okay.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Iris, for inviting me here. So just now, Meng Seng talked a lot about the past data. So I'm more concerned about the future, in the future pandemic. Just now, you all mentioned the Section 47 and the Section 65, which is the penalty. So I'll just like to point out two more, which is also inside the Infectious Disease Act, which is the health officer able to break into your house without a warrant to implement health measure. So some people ask, so which section got this law where also inside the Infectious Disease Act, Section 55, 55A, and 55B. It details all the power that the Director General of Health are able to direct health officer to enter your house without warrant. Yeah, and to search, inspect, and not only they can just enter without warrant, if they suspect something is wrong in your house, they can just go. Suspect only, no need to have evidence. They can break into it. So why am I so passionate? Just now I will say, because this is such a lousy piece of law being written.
Yeah,
It's easily abused by a law enforcer. It can be
exactly.
easily abused by other people. And being a law, not all law enforcers are good. And all these things can be abused. So Iris, maybe you share the video.
Sure.
I hope everyone see.
Wait, ah.
离我远一点，我现在是离我远点，离我远点。
不要让我们进去，好吧？
你现在不能进来。
好了，请出来。两个把东西收拾一下，你收不收？
我收，我收。你把文件给我。
快点。
哎，你们现在，你们先，你是哪的？你是哪的？你说。
你别那么多屁话。
你说哪？你是哪的？你先告诉我你是哪的？防疫办的是吗？行行行，好。都是防疫办的是吗？叫什么？你先告诉我叫什么？
你收不收？
我收，我收。你先告诉我叫什么？而且我现在，你们现在这样进来，我穿的是内衣 ，OK？ 哎，你不要动我啊！
我就动你了，咋地？你不配合、啊？
你出去，你们出去，我要换衣服。你动我！
穿不穿？
我动我！动我！我告诉你们耍流氓，你知道吗？
Yeah.
Wow, that was of course very, very, very scary. I'm also going to put up the act that you are mentioning about so that everybody can see that we are not just 好笑啊, right? Not really 好笑啊, really real one, real one.
Yeah,
We are very scared.
一点都不好笑啊。So, and this is exactly now is legal. It's legal. And I believe just now the lady, she is like most people, she do not know there's this law. The health officer can just break into your house and search and to bring her to somewhere. This happened in China. But do you know now this is legal in Singapore? And
This is sick.
I want to
Yeah,
ask,
really.
if I'm in the parliament, I want to ask WP, Pritam Singh. I say, why didn't you speak up? Are you a lawyer? You're a lawyer, right? Why didn't you speak up?
Exactly.
This is such a lousy piece of law. You have to review and amend it. So this is what I will say. And I will ask PAP also, why do you make such a law? If your vaccine is so good, so effective, then there's no need to have this kind of law. People will just queue up and go for the vaccine. There's no need to actually punish people for refusing to take the jab and go to jail. So I think these two, and the other one is the third schedule of the coroner inquiry. I spoke about this in the first rally. So it's not here, third schedule. So one of the category of death that's being removed is death due to medical treatment or death due to medical intervention. So why did they remove it? This act was supposed to promote and enhance medical transparency. So someone died after treatment, so there must be autopsy. So there's no good reason MOH and anyone actually offer why they remove this article, this particular clause. Yeah. So I also, if in the parliament, I ask about this. And of course, just now, Meng Seng say what he will do, what I will do. By right, if to be very scientifically correct, because I study biotech. So what biotech study? We study about protein, 3D interaction of proteins, and we also study how vaccines are made. So not doctor study how vaccines are made. We study and we do the biotech. So straight away when the vaccine came, I sensed something is wrong because vaccine cannot be made in such a short time. 8 months. It's around 8 months to 9 months. So the vaccine is ready. It's just like, I give you an analogy for all Singaporeans who are not familiar with all this. If I tell you this bowl of curry chicken, just take 10 seconds to make. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Cannot, right? You need to cut your potato, you need to cut your chicken. It's more than 10 seconds, you haven't cooked. So that's the key thing. So once this thing is out, and then I also know that my friend, father-in-law passed away after 1 week taking the jab. 1 week. And there's no compensation, no explanation. He died while driving Grab. So a few days after his jab, he has heart palpitation very fast. And then went to see GP. They do the ECG and say that there's nothing wrong with him. So 2 days later, he again experienced heart palpitation. Went to see GP. Again, GP said nothing wrong. Then 2 more days, he passed away inside his car while driving. Yeah. So he parked his car one side and then found it inside the car. So then I was like shocked when the vaccine first came. Subsequently, when there's more data, I went to see my MP back then, Dr. Kopo Kun. He's a Minister of State for Health and he's a medical doctor. So I showed him all the data and then I say, shouldn't we be a bit concerned? And there's all this side effect. Second is also how the measure was being enforced back then. So these are what I'm actually worried about. But he just listening and shout at me, no. My MP shout at me. Yeah.
He shouted at you, my gosh.
Yeah.
What did he say?
He just say all these are nonsense. I got no time to entertain you. Yeah.
Wow. And I think it's you know, and apparently people are going around to ask some experts lah, you know, whether it's PAP or opposition, we won't name them names, but they say, oh, I don't think the government will do the vaccination mandate in the next pandemic. But the thing is that if that's the case, why don't you just remove the law?
Yes,
Why don't
exactly.
they just remove it?
So the best insurance, right, is not just feel like government will not enforce the law, but what if they enforce? My question is this, and the best insurance is to vote for us to go into the parliament so that we can review and amend this law back to something that is not easily abused. Just like I showed you the video, we can see the health officer just barge in and catch the lady, and the lady is partially undressed. She says she's in the Navy, right? Yeah. So that's the issue. It's so bad. And I do not want anything to happen like this in Singapore.
Yeah, I mean, we will wrap up with the vaccination issue because we have half an hour. I want to bring also Zhen Dao and Via up before 9 o'clock. But I think your input is very
Definitely.
good. And also because, you know, when I mean, some people know that I was in remand. I actually talked to the police officers and I told them that if ever, okay, they were going to, if somebody is unvaxxed and cannot lock up or you have to do something to the unvaxxed, please don't do it because you just don't want to die. That's all. Okay, so I really, I can't stress how important this law is, and I can't stress how tyrannical and how against human rights and potentially very dangerous to everyone, and we should not allow our country to get to that stage, right? And there's only one party in Singapore who is brave enough to speak up about this topic, and that's People's Power Party, and they will be contesting in Ang Mo Kio as well as Tampines GRC. Now, even if you are not personally living there, please help us to spread the word. Okay, like evangelizing, you go and spread your whatever. this one is very important. Please help us, especially those people who are online. You've been following my channel for a long time, right? You all know. Please, you know, call your friends or whatever, find out if they are from the GRC that's concerned. Okay, and I think if enough people unite, there is really a chance. Okay, so with this, is Zheng Dao around? Can I bring him up?
I ask him.
Okay. Hi, Iris.
Okay. Hello. Hi, Zheng Dao. Okay, he's a young man that I met a couple of years ago. When all these things, or when the SHIT hits the roof, hits the fan. Okay, and I managed to talk to this very, very brave young man. Okay, but he's not going to talk about vaccine today. But I want him to talk about another very important issue. Right, but maybe you would like to, can you give everyone a little bit of background about yourself and why you are going to talk about the topic that you're talking about?
Okay, for someone who don't know me, right, I actually have a
Yeah.
diploma in landscape design and horticulture. So basically that is plant design and plant science in simple terms lah. So I'm passionate about the environment and I've been looking at all these environmental issues since I'm young. So when I'm young, I don't know if you all remember, I shared during my rally speech, one of the issue is the ozone layer having a hole, the hole in the ozone layer.
Yeah.
So that was painted as a world-ending kind of scenario back then. Really, really. So that was why
Yeah.
I got very concerned back
That
then.
was my time, okay, when I was growing up.
Same lah. I was in secondary school back then lah when this happened. Yeah. So that was simple facts about my background, and then I served my NS in the police force as well. So I have my experience inside the police force. But for today, I will be sharing about the green issues in the name of carbon tax, and all these net zero carbon emissions. Yeah. As per the CPI.
It is as controversial as the vaccines.
Oh, okay. That is up for people to decide. But
So
interestingly enough,
there are many
ah,
scientists talking about this, and they are saying the climate change is a scam, the carbon thing is a scam, okay, and really we shouldn't just take whatever they say wholesale. Please do your own research, okay? But anyway, sorry, Tenta, please continue.
okay, no problem. Just to add on to what you said, I was reading a book back then regarding this climate issue. Because back then there were scientists that were actually arguing both sides. They went into the White House and they presented their facts. So the one group of scientists that's opposing the climate change, right? What they are saying is that basically it's not humans that is attributing a lot of effects to this climate change. Actually, it's the sunspots. So that's one theory, where the sun will actually give out a certain extra amount of heat, right? That will affect Earth in general. So this effect brought out by the sunspots, right, actually affects Earth temperatures more than our human emissions, which a lot of people like to base it on carbon dioxide. So that was their propology back then, their proponent, how they argue in White House. So from there, right, we must look at both sides of the coin. How logical are each party in their presentation arguments. So moving forward, they were
May I just say one thing? May I just say one thing? And the good news is that the Trump administration, I believe, they have already said that they're going to remove all the carbon tax, all the climate change things from their administration. So that is a win. Okay. So in view of this winning by the Trump administration, I think we have a very valid reason to talk about the issue that you're going to talk about, because they want to increase carbon tax, okay, which is going to affect all of us very seriously, okay? Yeah, sorry, please continue. I'm just trying to give them some really important information about what's coming and why they must vote for People's Power Party, because they are the only party that's talking about this carbon tax issue, which is going to affect our cost of living, everybody. Okay, please continue.
Thank you, Aris. As mentioned, right, so these carbon tax will not be going away. They actually introduced back a few years ago already in Parliament. But in my first rally speech, I did mention, if you all think that your cost of living is very high now, right, just imagine the next 5 years. What we all know is that GST possibly could be raised to 10%. Okay, that's an extra add-on effect. Then right now, this carbon tax is going to increase even further. Right now, the carbon tax we are looking at is around $25 per ton. And in the next 5 years, it could rise up to $45 to $80 per ton. So that is more than double the increase, and that's on top of GST. So all these you factor in how it multiplies. I leave it up to you guys to decide. Because this carbon tax will affect everybody in the same way as GST will probably affect. And the government answer is just to give out vouchers. Same thing how they collect.
I mean, why do we need a carbon tax when carbon is such a small percentage of the gases in the atmosphere?
Correct. And the White House study where they argued methane and CFCs the aerosols actually affect the global temperatures much more than carbon dioxide. So this law is kind of insane just in the name of going green, Just
Yes.
like something that People Generals came up with
But you know, this issue actually, if you guys do the research, okay, in Europe, in Holland and all that, the farmers are rising up. People are rising up about this unfair carbon tax, and it's an issue that we all must pay attention to in Singapore because it will absolutely, okay, skyrocket our cost of living, right? So this is very, very, very important, and we must absolutely object. And today I found out that actually Workers' Party agreed to the carbon tax.
Wow,
Famously.
Correct, and that's what, that's kind of shocking, People will be actually thinking that Workers' Party will be representing them, opposing the policies, but well, that's surprising. They obviously never rejected and opposed the carbon tax. So let me
Yeah.
just give you the official data and what they say, according to
Sure.
today. So they say, right, it will affect our utility costs, okay? So it's projected to only increase our utility bills by approximately $4 for an average 4-room HDB flat. They're just saying that. So these $4 increase per year is what they believe will affect our livelihood in utility bills. So I don't know what the actual effect might be, but this is how the data they are presented out to the public.
I also understand that I think it was Derek who was mentioning about the difference in the carbon tax, like how in Singapore they actually want to tax the water for the carbon tax, which is a
Yep.
very basic essential, right?
Correct. So
As
that's going
opposed
to be affecting our utility bills as well.
And I remember our President Taman actually, in his WEF forums, and he's saying about the water tax. It's actually the globalists that seems to want to do all these carbon tax, and they are the ones who is absolutely benefiting from this, more so than the environment, I think, in my humble opinion. And I think this is absolutely wrong, right? That you are taxing the poor to enrich the rich.
That's kind of ironic, isn't it? Because you look at it this way, should water be a human right? That is
Of
already
course.
one argument on itself already, which I don't want to go near. But we look at how carbon tax are going to affect businesses. This is one thing I want to bring up today also. So with SMEs and small regular businesses, right, they can move in and penalize you for the amount of carbon emissions they deem you to have or emit, And what's ironic about this is these small medium enterprises might be affected very, very big, Because there's something where this policy along the line, where they are saying, right, they can sell you carbon credit score. So rich companies and MNCs can actually buy carbon credit scores from other companies to make their companies looks like they are carbon net zero.
Wait, say that again.
Yeah.
Repeat.
Repeat again?
Yeah.
You don't catch it?
No, I didn't catch it. Say it again.
Okay, so let me quote, according to what I asked ChatGPT, these carbon credits are valuable commodities that can be sold to companies or individuals who want or need to offset their own emissions.
So pay money, then the earth will be better.
So you can pay money to buy and lower your carbon emissions, carbon credit score. This is how this policy can be rolled out. So
Well,
wow.
we know it's actually all about money. It's a financial market. They want to commoditize everything. So that's why the Trump administration has basically effectively crippled this climate change nonsense, right? He's doing away with it, which is a good news for the entire world. And we should absolutely be in sync with what's happening internationally, right? And I think the PAP government is very upset because Donald Trump just spoiled their plans.
Let's flip their plans. No, but you see, I'm an environment student. So when you tell me about carbon and net zero emissions, right, I will ask you along another way of reasoning. It's like, if it's in the name of environmental impact, why are we clearing so much land in Singapore, right, to build MRT tracks, to remove all the natural land we have, eco land, eco diversity we have, just to build so many new infrastructures, you know. That's actually harming the environment more than all these kind of carbon tax and what.
Exactly. And the irony is that carbon is needed for plants. Am I
Correct.
right? I mean, you're a
Yes.
horticulturist, right? So
Hmm.
actually, having excess carbon is good for plant life, right? But we are actually trying to cut down the very thing that is actually beneficial for vegetation to thrive. That's just unbelievable and totally illogical.
So all the activist group for all these environmental restoration and preservation, right? A few issues that I would like to raise up is one of them is the Kranji Woodland incident, you know, where one of the government bodies or affiliated one accidentally cleared out around 4.5 hectares of woodland.
Yeah,
Ah,
I saw that part.
you saw that part, right? So a lot
Yeah.
of animals and the biodiversity were accidentally cleared out 4.5 hectares. That is
So
one issue. The second
yeah.
issue I want to bring up is the Bukit Timah area developments. You know, they're going to build MRT tracks over it. And all these, the extent and the specific data, how our building of infrastructure and all these will affect the environment are actually not really clear at this point. We don't know the exact extent. But people in the environmental groups have voiced out their concern, you know, with all these developing land changes.
Yes. So I
Yeah,
think it's very important this topic because Singapore is you know the plants and the animals are also part of Singapore. You know the flora, fauna, and the animals, and they depend on us to protect them, right?
right.
So it is very important that not in the name of progress or money, and I also hear that actually all these forests or like more like I would say not virgin land but basically more agricultural or like you know just not developed land is actually cheaper. That's why developers always like to go for these kind of lands, okay, when they build their things. I mean, this is what some people have shared with me, and yeah, so I think you are talking about a very important topic that is very native. I mean, it's very important. I mean, it's just like native Singaporeans. We need our native flora, fauna, and animals and all that. Otherwise, it's all going to be imported vegetation, imported Gardens by the
Yeah.
Bay. I
Would you
mean,
like
that's
me to
not.
talk about would you like me to talk about AI also?
Oh, yes, please. Forgot.
You know, there was recently this meme about our teammate Samuel going on online, right? How he sing the song, you know,
I
and then
look
it
level,
become
right? Look level, right? That one.
yeah, correct, correct. So actually, a lot of people laugh at it, you know, and whether it's cyberbullying or not is up to people to decide. But at the end of the day, he is just voicing his emotions where he cannot find a job, you know, and he's having to do private grad hire, even though he's a university graduate. So with the advance of AI, we are possibly looking at electric vehicles as well as self-driving cars. How these self-driving cars will affect the Grab industry, food delivery industry, we all don't know. Their jobs can be gone in an instant, overnight, after all these cars hit the market with this feature. So you can be laughing at him now, but in my rally, I talk about 5 years later, what's going to happen to all these Grab drivers, you know? Even in the cleaning industry, we see robots being rolled out, you know, the cleaning
Yeah.
industry already. So how many jobs old people cannot do due to this? We also don't know.
Yes, and I think actually those robots may be the second line. The first line is actually more the people who are like in the more like intellectual business, like even like now ChatGPT is so good, you can even, I mean, I submit some of my law cases myself, you know. So it can even replace lawyers. I mean, I'm not saying that it 100% can replace, but I'm just saying that, you know, for things like marketing, you know, you want to write things like you want to promote
Yep.
stuff, you know, AI is absolutely changing the way we do business, absolutely changing the way we do work. and I believe that many young people are going to be jobless, and even old people are going to be jobless. I mean, if you're talking about the robots cleaning and all that, that's about the physical, automation. But the other ones where I thought you was bringing up a very good point is about the young people who will spend a lot of money, okay, studying in a university, and then they graduate and actually there's no more jobs left for them, and then they actually have to leave Singapore. That's very sad.
Yeah. So actually, there's a study conducted recently, where a lot of people in Singapore, 61% or 61 prefer to live abroad, with the highest being Australia and Malaysia. So these are Singaporeans we are looking about. 61% of them wants to live abroad if given the choice. That's very sad, especially when you think that, wow, Singapore is such a small nation, we are tightly built community. This doesn't seem to be the case according to this study.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have any maybe my last question for you is, why did you step up to politics and why you joined PPP?
Why I step up to politics is really a lot of the laws I feel are just unjust. And even though I'm just 24 years old, sometimes I listen to what these ministers talk about. I'm bamboozled. That's the only word I can use with what they say, their recent comments, And I myself have my own personal experience in NS, where I refused to take the jab, and people were actually saying, if I don't take the jab, they want to throw me inside jail, detention barracks, in NS terms. Yeah, so during that time, right, I was actually prepared to go inside jail, right? And God knows what would happen to me. So I don't want anybody in Singapore to experience this, just for standing up for my basic right, then I face this kind of threats. So what Derek shared earlier just now, right, is a very possible scenario to happen to anyone in Singapore if they refuse to take anything.
Yes, and it's real. You experienced it yourself, the coercion, the threats to throw you some to barracks and stuff, which is very, very uncalled for, is when it's not even safe. Okay. That is something that, and the thing is that the leadership of this country hasn't even acknowledged, right? We have been saying for 3.5 years, right? They haven't even acknowledged, they haven't even apologized for pushing this, and the law is still there, which gives them the ability to be able to walk into our home the next pandemic comes, which is around the corner. Okay, it's not like COVID is over. Everybody just want to say, oh, COVID is over, let's get on with our lives.
Yeah.
They're not going to do this, they're not going to do this. Really, they did it. They did it. Can they
As
be
police
trusted?
officers, right? As police officer and someone who served in the SPF, one thing they highlighted and warned us about is the abuse of power. Every civil servant are familiar with this, the abuse of power. So they are warned against it. But in this case, why is this law even passed in the parliament? We can indemnify,
Well, the
I guess.
abuse of power, very interesting that you say, because on the 30th is when I'm going to find out whether there was any abuse of power by the government.
Yeah.
But it's
As
very real,
much as
guys.
we are laughing here today, our experiences inside is not really fun at all, I mentally
Yeah.
was dead back then. I was prepared to die back then really. I cannot see a way out back in the 2 years of service. So I understand and relate to you how you felt. And we are just
Okay.
trying to be good, ordinary citizens, It's not
Yeah.
like we are planning to overthrow something or create a terrorist attack or something like that, Just us, we are trying to follow the law. We want to be good citizens. Why do they force us to become this way? It's very sad. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so thank you so much, Zheng Dao, and for sharing with us your experience, your story, and your plans for the future. I wish you all the best, and you'll be standing in Ang Mo Kio, am I right?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
So if you
Iris.
see this young man walking around, he's the future of Singapore. He's the youngest candidate for this general elections, and I think he has a strong passion for Singapore. He He has a strong passion for the environment, which is and he can be a good person to speak up about the carbon tax. Guys, if you want to pay extra carbon tax, vote for People's Power Party, because they are the only people in Singapore, okay, right now that is talking about this, and you absolutely need to share this so that we are not going to increase our standard of living. Please, you can vote for Workers' Party elsewhere, but for Tampines, please. Okay, please vote them. And of course, Workers' Party is not going to Ang Mo Kio, but but Ang Mo Kio, you are having another fight with another, is it Singapore United Party? Am I right? SUP?
Yeah, SUP, correct.
Okay, so yeah. So anyway, just look for the torch, put a cross for Ang Mo Kio, okay? All right, I'm gonna bring Veer up next, because Veer is the next person that is going to be speaking to you. Hello, Veer.
Hi, thanks for
I
having
want to
me.
introduce this young man. I watch him grow up. Him and the sister, and I am so proud of him that today he's so brave and speaking so well on stage, and it really makes me very proud that he, like, there's young people like him that's doing something for this country, right? So Veer, can you tell us why you stepped up? And I always see, every time there's videos online, and then I always see people say, oh yeah, you are the only normal person. Why didn't you join SDP? Why didn't you join PSP? Why didn't you join WP and other political parties? So I want to ask you, why did you step up to politics, and why you chose People's Power Party?
Right. I think first of all, thanks so much for having me on your session here. I dare not take any credit. All the credit, if I've done anything good, goes firstly to God and also to my parents who raised me. I think that other people also ask me this, why did you join PPP? Because the media has been smearing us a lot. They've been trying to make us look bad, make us look, not well put together and things like that. And the reason why I joined PPP is simply because of what I did say also in the last rally, because it's about values. The values that are the core of the PPP, the People's Power Party, resonate with me. It's what I believe in, primarily truth and family, doing the right thing for the country and valuing the citizens. And I think I was impressed by PPP being the only opposition party to step up to talk about this thing that no one wants to talk about. And it's so strikingly obvious that no one wants to talk about this, because we've tried and we've said it before. If someone else can take this burden off our shoulders, we would gladly let it go and go home and sleep, because we're exhausted. But we can't, and so the burden remains on our shoulders, and we are determined to do something about it. I think every single person in the PPP, they have this sense of duty. They're not doing this because it's easy. They're not doing this so that we can get some fame or some accolades, because we're getting the opposite right now. But it's so that we can sleep in peace at night, so that we know that we did the right thing, so that we can stand up for the people we love, because we don't want to see Singapore going down this road that is going to become tyrannical, or perhaps it already is tyrannical, but it's right under our noses. And it's very sad, because not only is this, gambling with people's lives, but it's also a reflection of the nature of the way Singapore is being led. And if it continues to be led this way, even if they change the vaccine thing, even if they didn't, enforce the law this way, but the spirit that Singapore is being led in will eventually lead to its destruction, because it's about fear, it's about control, it's about, it's about authoritarian kind of brainwashing almost. And this kind of environment is not going to be conducive for the next generation to step up and take over and grow, because we're always trying to use the old methods to change the future, and it's just not getting very far. Yeah, so I hope that this can be a wake-up call to all Singaporeans to think about what the government actually stands for and what it should stand for and what that should look like in practice. Yeah, so that's why I chose the People's Power Party.
Well, I think you chose right because because values is really, I think, the most important thing in as a leader. Because as a politician, you're leading the country, and today, of course, there's no lack of capable leaders in Singapore. They are got their PhD, this and that, law degree, medical degree, and so forth. But the hardest thing, right, is this thing called values, right, and the courage to do what is right,
Yeah.
because the leaders of of tomorrow, which I firmly believe, right, needs to be somebody who's upright, needs to be somebody who's willing to stand up, and
Yeah, I
and
think that there's a huge temptation for every leader, and especially in politics, which is to say what people want you to say and what people want to hear, because that will get you to the top the quickest. You just parrot whatever it is that you know people would like to hear, and then everyone likes you.
yes,
But that usually means telling lies and not, upholding the truth. So it will get you popular, right? Trying to please everyone, trying to make everyone happy, but it's not real, because truth is binary. Is up or down, left or right. You can't be everywhere at once. If you stand for everything, then actually you stand for nothing. And if you
exactly,
stand for nothing, then you won't stand at all. So people need to understand it's about truth.
exactly, because truth, because as a politician, the politicians are lawmakers, right? And if you go into parliament and make laws not based on truth, then can you imagine how bad our world is going to become, how bad this country is going to be run if it's based on, let's say, propaganda or some kind of weird science, or like science that's not even that can be manipulated that can
Yeah.
be manipulated based on money or and so forth, right? I mean, I also found out recently what PPP stands for, like the torch. You want to say a little bit about that, because that was something that struck a chord in me as well.
Yeah, so the torch, I also found this out recently. That the torch is the torch of truth. So we shine the light of truth wherever we go with this torch. And the truth will definitely burn up all the lies. That's why it's a torch. That's why it's fire. So it's hot, right? And if you carry this torch, you'll be able to chase away the darkness, chase away the lies. And so that's what we want to do. We want to bring this torch of truth into the highest places of government where the light needs to shine. Otherwise, how are you going to see where you're going? You've got no light. So the torch
Exactly.
not only, burns away the nonsense, but shines the way forward. So that's what we need. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is for this reason that I would say, even though PPP is a small party, but I think it's founded on very good values. And I was listening to a Spotify interview also about how the party has got basically policies to check and balance, and I really like that. Okay, and I don't know whether you're in a position to talk about the check and balance policy. Okay.
Yeah. I think there were a few policies that were being proposed. One of which was, I won't go into the details because it'd be a bit technical, but basically there are certain officers, like right now the electoral boundaries, the committee, right? Then they shouldn't be answering, they should be in a separate jurisdiction, because there's a conflict of interest, things like that. And then the setting up of an ombudsman committee, that means it's a separate committee to actually check and make sure what's being done is being done properly, things like that. Because many times there are conflicts of interest. There are people who are making the decisions, but because of their position, you're not sure who they're representing. And it's easy for those areas to overlap, and that leads to abuses in power. And after the elections are over, then you can't really do much about it because it's already been set in stone for the next 5 years. So things like this may have worked in the past when Singapore needed some iron hand to, get itself together in 1965. But it's now 2025, and these methods are outdated. They can be considered archaic, draconian, and people are way, way too educated to succumb or believe these kind of methods anymore. And if you continue to use these tactics, an excellent example is the gerrymandering that we are seeing, which is obviously is so painfully obvious. They continue to use these tactics, they alienate the young people because the young people are not stupid. They're all university degree holders. So it's got to stop. This is about governance. It's about demonstrating the integrity, demonstrating the transparency. When people are able to see that, then they can trust the government, and then there will be more unity in the nation. Otherwise, we are actually destroying ourselves, but quietly. There's a quiet sort of disintegration that's happening in Singapore. I think Zhen Dao brought it up just now, that 60% of people want to leave. That's a lot. 60% is more than half.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to think about the foundational issues. That's why if you listen to my speeches in the rallies, I don't touch on policy much because the policy stems from the values. All the policies stem from the values, stem from the core beliefs of people making them. That's what
Yes.
matters in the end. It's the root causes.
Yep.
Hmm.
Okay, I want to ask you a little bit about your education because
Sure.
I know you have a very unusual education. You were homeschooled, right? And
Yeah.
maybe
So
is there anything that I think, having had your experience, I think you can really give a lot of good ideas and about how we can think out the box. And I mean, I'll leave you to speak what you want to say, and because I think um I think you are very mature for your age, and
thank you.
it's probably because of your education, right? So
Yeah, I like to tell people that I was educated, but I wasn't schooled. So I was home educated. So I've never actually set foot in an official educational institute my entire life, actually.
you're lucky
So,
you're not brainwashed.
yeah, that's a good one. That's a good way to look at it. My parents taught me. They homeschooled me ever since I was born. And I started working already when I was 15, and in various different positions. I think I have quite a lot more experience than most people my age because of that. And because I was homeschooled, I was also able to follow my parents who traveled a lot. So at 26 years old, I've already been to about 17 different countries, and met a lot of different people, learned a lot of different things. I've tried to start my own business and worked in many different positions. So I think that has helped me to have a broader perspective and see things from a different angle. If you are always in one place, like a lot of my friends, they've been in Singapore their whole life, so they don't really know exactly how it works in other places. And actually, one of the things I noticed Singaporeans do is actually we take this place for granted. If you travel enough, you will know that even though we have serious problems here, Singapore is truly a miracle place. It's amazing what we have here. And you just need to travel to any of our neighboring countries and you'll realize and be grateful for what we have, which is all the more reason why I think it's worth fighting for. Yeah.
Yes, because I mean, I would say that we are one of the safest country in the world. I mean, you've been around, you know that. So one thing good that the PAP government did for us is to have this really safe country, which I really appreciate. So let's be clear, we're not here just to bash up the government or anything, okay?
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
think there's a lot to improve, okay? There's a lot to improve. And like what you say, you know, a lot of the laws and things were made in 1965 for whatever reasons, and society has changed, our population has changed, and we must keep up with the times. And having someone like you in parliament, I think it's going to be an asset, because there's a lot of paper generals who study a lot and do well in studies, right? But there needs to be other you know, representation of people who are different, because different people make up the society. It's not just paper generals who who live in Singapore, and why should they be the only ones who get to make the policies, right? And yeah, is there any questions that other people would like to ask via? I mean, maybe we can take one or two. Okay, somebody said, I disagree, Iris. A safe country is the duty of any government. Yes, it is true, but I would say other countries that maybe not as safe. I don't know. Do you have anything to respond to that, Via?
Mm, I mean, there's not a lot of countries that you can walk around at 4 a.m. at night and not worry. That doesn't mean that yes, correct. That doesn't mean that we are safe from medical tyranny. That doesn't mean we are safe from government overreach. That doesn't mean that we are safe from abuse of power. But I think I'm just trying to be a bit more optimistic and count my blessings as well. I think if we become too negative, it's also not good, because we have to see the whole picture.
Yes.
So it is the duty of every government to ensure the safety of their citizens within the borders of that nation. And frankly, as far as physical safety goes, Singapore has done a good job.
Yes.
Physical safety, all right? Other safeties, okay, we can debate and then remedy the issues. That's my
Yes.
that's my 2 cents.
Yes. I'm actually waiting now for Mr. Lim to come online, but he's not. So I maybe can have some time. I think you want to talk about what PVP is looking for, volunteers, and you know
Yeah,
how to support
exactly.
PVP in the
Yeah, we
meantime.
really need help, not just donations, but we need manpower. We need people, especially on the polling day, to be polling agents and counting agents. What that means is that you will actually be there at the polling booth to make sure that there's no funny business going on, to make sure that the votes are sealed properly and transported to the correct vehicles. Counting agents will be at the counting center where the votes, the ballots are actually being counted, and make sure that none of the ballots that are meant for us goes to any other party. Because there have been reports before of people, they are angry, so on the ballot, they will write, go to hell or some bad word, or they will just strike out the whole paper. And what can happen, I'm not saying it will, but it can happen that the counting agent will say, oh, he wrote go to hell on the PAP side of the paper, so he voted for PAP. Or he wrote, he scribbled something, and then most of the ink is on the which side, so they say, oh, that's the vote for them. And they'll just makan and eat up any of these questionable votes. So someone has to be there on our side to look carefully and see and make sure that that doesn't happen. So that would be a counting agent. So we need volunteers who are willing to do this for us. It will be, if want to be a polling agent, that means you'll be there from the morning, I believe 8 a.m. until evening, probably around 5-ish. I don't have the exact details. This one I'll go and get. But the counting agent will be in the morning. Sorry, the polling agent will be in the morning. Counting agent will be in the evening when they're doing the counting. Yeah. So we need your help. If you know anyone who will be willing to help us on the 3rd of May to do this, then please let us know. you can get in touch with Iris, who has, I think you have the form, the volunteer form.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we will just capture your phone number and a few small details so that we can add you into a WhatsApp group where all the other volunteers will be there, and then we can coordinate ourselves. We don't have much time because it's already Monday, and we have until basically Saturday to settle this. Yeah, I think less. I
Yes.
think we have less time. We have only until take it until we have Thursday lah. So we got the next 4 days. We need over 200 volunteers.
Wow.
Yeah. If we
Anything
can
to
have,
add from Derek's side about this issue? Is if Derek's still there, does he want to add anything
he's
about?
here.
Yeah, I think Derek, you want to say
Just a
say
second. Sorry. Yeah. So they're asking about the polling and the voting agents. What
Hello.
else do we need?
Hello.
So what's the question again? Sorry.
You want to call for volunteers? What kind of volunteers you want? You know, this is your chance to tell everyone what they
so-
need to do to volunteer.
Okay, so we need a lot of counting and polling agent. Polling agent for us, I think at the moment, not so important because there's a lot of party fighting. So there's a lot of party looking at the box as well. But counting agent, I need a lot of counting agent to watch how they count and there to speak up and make sure that all the box are actually loaded to the counting center. Yeah, so this is the second half of the battle. We don't want all the hard works, all the rally, and then someone change the box or whatever. So we need to look at the box properly. All the ballot sheet are being counted properly. So I need a lot of volunteers. We have a briefing on 1st of May is a Labor Day holiday, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock at Centrum Square. Yeah. So if you want to, you can actually PM me or go to our website. We have this link
Can
Google
you
Doc.
give them the link? Can you give them the link and type in the box if you can?
Okay.
And then I can put it up as well, you know.
Okay, now I put in the link.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I also want to tell you all about another link that you yeah, so okay, it's a Google link. I will put it later in the chat group. I mean, it's hard for the people online to see because it's hard, but anyway, you can go to the PPP, the People's Power Party.sg website. I think you may have some place there to collect. And also I want to share about the manifesto and how to contribute to you guys, the link for that. Okay, you can go here. I have, it's bit.ly/PPP capital manifesto, and you can reach this link where you can read about the party's manifesto, as well as I think there's a link to support you guys as well. I know every party is looking for money for there's a lot of expenses for the rally and the elections and so forth. So if you wish to support them, you can go to the link there and do the pay now and stuff. Okay. So we're almost, there are 2 person put up the hand. I don't know, because of this forbidden food. Okay, because hold on, Mr. Lim is yeah, I was waiting for Mr. Lim. I think he's just calling in. Okay, so is there any questions? Is there any last words you guys want to say to people while you have them at your attention? Derek, I think you're muted.
Oh no, I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight's
Yes.
meeting. Yeah. So come and pack the stadium tomorrow and send a very strong signal to government that we reject medical tyranny.
Yes. And so once again, I think Mr. Lim, where is he coming in? Okay, he's coming in. We're just going to wait around for him, but you guys are done. If you are busy, you want to go off, okay, and you can join my channel which is on Telegram, bit.ly/healing the divide, where I will be updating everybody about the latest election information, especially from the People's Power Party. And you have a rally tomorrow. You want to tell everybody about the rally tomorrow? Where will it be?
The rally is at Yio Chu Kang Stadium. 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay.
Mm.
And are you having any other rallies after tomorrow?
Hopefully. So we need the funds
Okay.
to come in. So because every rally is around 10,000. So we are a bit short
Okay.
of fund, but hopefully it will not be the last rally. But just take it as the last rally. So please come and support us.
Okay. Guys, you hear it? Okay, tomorrow, if you want, okay, People's Power Party will be at Yio Chu Kang Stadium. Okay, and it's next to the Yio Chu Kang MRT station.
Yes, correct.
It's very just walkable distance from there.
Mm.
And you don't have to be at Ang Mo Kio or Tampines, right, to come to the rally, because we want you to hear the information that will be presented. And of course, please feel free to bring your friends, relatives, and after you hear the information, you can then share with everybody. Okay, and the slides and all that's been presented by Mr. Meng Seng just now, it's found in my Telegram channel. You can go there, and I have like there will be stuff that you can find. Okay, so your friends can join my channel and to get some information as well. Okay, the link for the thing. Okay, so yeah, I think you're more or less done. I'm still waiting for yes, the link. Yeah, I will just show the rally information which I have, and yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so let me just share it. But I think, yeah, if you guys are busy or something, it's okay. I am okay already. Hold on, I'm just going to. Anybody has any questions for PPP while they're here? Because it's good that if you have any questions for them. Yeah, I'm going to share now the rally details so that they can see. Yeah.
Any question for me?
Any questions for him? I think nobody got a question. It seems okay. So tomorrow, the third rally, okay, 29 April, Tuesday, 7 to 10 p.m. at Yio Chu Kang Stadium. Okay, next to the Yio Chu Kang MRT station. Support them. Okay, make Singapore home again. All right. So yeah, I think there's some question. Wait,
Yes, many questions for Lim Tian.
Okay. You have yes, because he's probably in the place. Is he here already? Is Lin Tian here? Sorry, because it's a election night. Oh yeah, he's here. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Derek and the PPP party. All right, so I'm going to now turn my attention to Mr. Lim. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye.
Can you see me? I'm sorry, I'm in a bit of a dark place. But,
yes, we can see you, and there are many people with questions for you. but
first of
tell
all,
us how it's going so far.
Let me thank you for this invitation. Sorry, I'm joining a bit late. I just finished a walkabout in Potong Pasir SMC where I'm contesting, but I'm delighted to be with you and all your followers and your friends.
Yes, you are currently being streamed on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok live.
Wonderful.
Yes. So how's the ground so far? Tell us about what's going on. And I saw you complaining about not having enough airtime yesterday at the round table. So I'd like to give you more airtime here so people can hear you share and speak about your plans for Singapore.
Yeah, you see, let me first start off with the round table last night. As you know, this morning I made a post complaining about the unfairness of the format. And, since then it's gained like 100,000 views. So, people feel the same and feel that the whole thing was a bit of a farce and, dreadfully unfair. What happened was this. We were told that the format was similar to what happened in 2020. And in 2020, there were 4 parties involved. There was, of course, the PAP, there was the WP, there was PSP, and then there was SDP. Yesterday, the 4 biggest parties were present as well. The PAP, WP, RDU this time, and then us and PSP. PSP and ourselves both fielded 13 candidates. That's why there was an extra party, because we were tight. Now, so, I was okay with whatever format. I mean, I had been through this before in 2015 when I made my political debut. And that year, as the Secretary General of the NSP and someone very green, I took part in the debate. And the PAP rep then was Lawrence Wong and Denise Phua. So I think I debated quite well. But even then, it was ridiculous because the PAP had 50% of the allocated time, and the rest of the opposition parties had to share the remaining 50%. And in 2015, there were even more parties. So it was ridiculous. But at least there was interaction. At least you could throw questions at the PAP, or you could throw questions at Leon Pereira, who was representing WP in that debate. There was absolutely nothing of that sort last night. We went there, half an hour or 45 minutes before the start of it, we were given a series of questions that we would be asked. And, we were asked to do, you can do some prep. Well, you know me, I don't read from a script. I just basically jotted down points I wanted to make, I have never ever used a script in my life, not even in court when I am representing clients, because, that's just not my nature. And I'm pretty good speaking extempore. So, but the whole thing turned into a question and answer session. There was no debate at all right? And what was startling to me was that, Chi Hong Tat, who represented the PAP, even brought his iPad. And there must have been a lot of materials in his iPad, because he kept referring to it throughout. If you had watched the roundtable, he kept reading from the iPad. So I'm like wondering, how could he have possibly produced so much material, in that 45 minutes after we were given the questions? But maybe it's because, he had generic materials in there that he referred to. So, I'm not making any accusations, all right? But I think Singaporeans lost a lot by not being able to see a proper debate, because I certainly had a lot of tough questions which I wanted to ask the minister. All right. And none of that happened. So big letdown. Now, as far as the campaign in Potong Pasir is going, it is going great. Of course, I'm involved in a three-corner fight. I wish there wasn't a three-corner fight, because I know I can beat the PAP. All right. But we have a three-corner fight, and I have to live with that. But I want to ask my supporters, and please help me spread the message. And I mean this with absolutely no disrespect to the candidate from the SPP, Williamson Lee, all right, who's a very decent fella. But truth be told, the only person who can beat the PAP in Potong Pasir is me. And I think it would be an utter waste, especially this year, given the ground sentiments and given the favorable perception of the opposition, to waste this chance not to recapture Potong Pasir for the opposition. So I hope all the opposition supporters and those who do not want the PAP and who reject the PAP will coalesce around my candidacy and vote for me on the 3rd of May. I mean no ill to Williamson Lee or what, but I think it is important for the opposition to win Potong Pasir, and I am the person who can do that. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask something, Mr. Sorry, keep going first, and I'll ask you the question later.
Yes. Now, I am gratified to know that I think because of my consistent work over the last 10 years, in which I have been prolific on social media, I am very well known in Potong Pasir. Yeah. And very often when I go up to greet someone or shake hands, before I even reach there, they already know me and say, "Hi, Mr. Lim." So I'm gratified. I think the name recognition is there, and that is a very important part of politics. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy. And
So all the good
it
news,
shows
bad
that
news, all good.
it shows that all the hours spent, writing posts on Facebook and doing videos and all that over the last 10 years have not gone to waste.
Yes, you're definitely a working opposition.
And I would like to think so. And I think people respect me as well, because I have taken stance, which very often people would think is confrontational, but it works. Not that I want to be confrontational on purpose, but just to give you an example, the Kelvin Cheng incident, right, in which he made those derogatory remarks against the Gaza activists. And, for like about 3 weeks or nearly a month, all the PAP did was to say that they disagreed with his views, when actually the foreign minister, Vivian Balakrishnan, had liked the post. And then we were told that he actually did not like the post, and that he had filed a report with Meta, saying that there was some interference with his social media. Well, it's been several weeks now, and what is the outcome of that report? He will not tell. On nomination day, I think, a reporter asked him, and he brushed aside that question, and he said, well, that's not important now. Now is the time to talk about unity and all that nonsense. Well, people have the right to know, because you actually did like the post, and now you're claiming that you did not like the post. All right? If you did like the post and there's no excuse for it, it shows a lack of judgment. It shows that basically you're not fit to be foreign minister. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And and Shanmugam, when the matter first surfaced, no, he actually didn't say anything. It was only a week before Pergas came out with a strong statement denouncing Kelvin Cheng that he finally said, I disagree with Kelvin Cheng's views. But that's as far as the PAP ministers went, okay? You know what happened after Shanmugam said he disagreed with Kelvin Cheng's views and Vivian said the same? Yeah. I went to Sultan Mosque in Kampong Glam in Jalan Besar GRC with my PAR colleagues. And in front of the Sultan Mosque, we made a statement that denounced Kelvin Cheng, all right, for his inflammatory statements, provocative statements. The mainstream media were there. They recorded my every movement. They recorded my statement. The cameras were in front of me. But lo and behold, they did not publish that statement. All right? Because it was obviously too controversial. Yeah? It was too controversial. But you know what happened? And I'm very gratified. And that is why I say I'm someone who makes things happen. 7 hours after I made that statement and after it was recorded by mainstream media, although they did not publish, Pergas came out with a statement denouncing Kelvin Cheng in almost the same language I used. All right? I asked for accountability, so did Pergas. And you know what happened after that? In quick succession, Masagos came out to condemn Kelvin Cheng, which he never did before. He even thanked him for organizing that Hari Raya thingy at Tampines, whatever. Previously he did that. But when Pergas came out to denounce Kelvin Cheng, Masagos had no choice but to finally denounce him in the strongest terms. All right? And then after Masagos did that, Lawrence Wong came out to denounce him. So you see, my friends, we may not have been in parliament, but we effected real change in Singapore. Okay? And can you imagine if we are in parliament? I think we can do a lot more. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I'm glad you brought up this subject because he's one of my nemesis. But
yeah. But the funny thing is he's disappeared from sight the last few weeks. I haven't seen him around on Facebook.
Gone into hiding.
Yeah. He's usually prolific, and I come across his posts all the time. But I've not seen I've not seen him in the slightest the last 3 weeks. Yeah.
He's gone for some retreat, But I think what you have said, something is very important, is that of course, what you did was really, really good. And like going to the mosque and making the statement, which actually none of the PAP was willing to put a stand on. They seem to tiptoe around him, and he could get away all the time saying all kinds of things. And I have a lawsuit against him now, which I'm suing him for saying that the unvaxxed should be jailed and caned,
Yes.
which is really so terrible. And he's saying that I'm literally killing people. And he seems to be getting away with such things, but of course, I mean, the lawsuit is still ongoing. It's just the
Yeah,
initial
I mean,
stages.
the lawsuit is still ongoing, and so I won't make any comments
Yeah.
because it's sub judice. But
Yes.
I mean, otherwise, I have very strong opinions about your ongoing case with Calvin Cheng. All right, and the statements he made about you and your group. Yeah.
And then I do not know whether you know about the media, the enforcement with media presence. That was absolutely horrendous also. He got the media to come to my house, right? And then to film the enforcement.
You
right?
see, Iris, I'll tell you something. As a lawyer, that is completely out of line. That is completely out of line. And I understand that there was even a Lee and Lee lawyer on the spot. Now, that is totally out of line because a lawyer should never allow cameramen, especially from the media, to follow on what was supposed to be an enforcement process. All right.
Yes.
And I don't understand what the sheriff was doing or the bailiff. He was there as well. I saw the video. He was like wearing a tie or something. I mean, if I was the bailiff, I would tell the cameraman, what are you doing here? Get lost. Okay.
Exactly.
Now, I think that is very serious grounds for complaint. Okay.
Exactly.
And I do not think that the courts will look kindly upon such publicity stunts, and it was obviously done to shame you, to shame your husband, Raymond. And that is not what the courts are supposed to do. All right. Okay.
Exactly. Now,
Yeah.
I want to, and I think what I want, I mean, your roundtable and all these things that we're talking about, I think it's very important that in Singapore we have a free press, but until we have the moment that we have a free press, I would say, I think this Beyond Ice Cream, this kind of platform, I consider myself a brave citizen who has been speaking up, and I'm not afraid to let brave politicians like yourself, right, speak your mind and say what you need to say, because there's a lot of all these interviewing politicians, but they are from the mass media, and they always like to censor things, and it's always politically correct, and it's hard to get to the truth when everything is so polished, and also they have influencers also, but who knows if they're being paid by the PAP or whatever to do certain kinds of interviews, right? So what we need is really to get to the bottom of truth and to get to the real issues, right? And that's what Trump did, right? Because at the start of his campaign, he always talked about, when he first became president, he said, "Oh, fake news, fake news, fake news."
Yes.
And until we can know that actually, yeah, the media is not really telling us the full picture, right? That we need also citizens rising up to be able to tell stories like from you, to hear from your side, because election time is really so short, and for us to really be able to hear about your policies and what you
Yeah.
have in mind.
Iris, thank you very much. I am so happy to be appearing on this program. Now, let me tell you what I have tried to effect, or PA has tried to effect in this campaign. We totally reject the PAP narrative, okay? Let me give you a sort of a timeline of how this GE has come about, all right? Now, the PAP likes to use, let me rephrase. The PAP is basically a one-trick pony, okay? The way it wins and it controls people is through fear, all right? There's nothing positive about this party at all, okay? And so, and I will not quote his name, a minister was captured on tape saying and he was captured on tape 5 years ago saying, look here, we will always look for a crisis when we go to the general elections. All right? Okay? And in fact, TOC played that tape in G 2020. But the mainstream media and all that refused to pick it up. Okay? So it basically died a natural death. But that is the only trick the PAP knows. And you will find that in every campaign, the PAP goes negative. There's nothing positive about the PAP campaign. Yeah. And what is the negativity in this campaign? Oh, the Trump tariffs, which were basically godsend for the PAP. All right. They were godsend. Now, you look back at the last 5 years, you look back the hell you have been through, which was the word I used at the round table last night. The super high inflation, turbocharged by the GST hikes, all right? The various increases like water, electricity, transport, and all that. That has just become unbearable for many Singaporeans. Yeah. And you know something? All that is created by the PAP. It's self-created. Lawrence Wong now tries to come and, you know, he talks rubbish when he says, oh, all this is imported. We can't help it. We are price takers. All this is, you know, global inflation. It is not. Inflation is largely driven by domestic government policies. And let's not forget, after the Ukrainian war started, yes, there was for a period of about a year or so, high inflation. All right, super high inflation. You know, food could not be exported out of the Ukraine. Grains could not be exported out. But after that, basically, the Ukrainians started exporting. All right. And, you know, inflation started to come down. Okay. But in Singapore, they tell inflation may have come down. But that's what people feel. Why? Because when you go out to eat a bowl of wanton mee or bak chor mee or whatever, you find that that bowl of noodles has gone from $3.50 to $4 to $4.50 and now $5. And, you know, everyone knows that that is the result of the GST hikes, which, you know, Lawrence Wong and then Chee Hong Tat, Shanmugam refuse to acknowledge, and they come out with all sorts of crappy reasons, all right, which nobody believes. So remember this. Everything that you have gone through in the last 5 years, the suffering has been the creation of the PAP. And they have no solution. They have no solution. All right? Have they given you one solution on how to lower your cost of living? They have not. Cost of living rises inexorably. Public housing costs rises inexorably. And that is because they allow this flood of foreigners to come into our country. They allow PRs to buy resale HDB, thereby driving the resale HDB prices even higher. And you know what happens when that occurs? The BTO prices are pulled along because they are linked, all right? And the only way many young couples can now get hold of a BTO is through very heavy government subsidies. But you can't say that public housing is affordable when it is only reachable through heavy subsidies. Yeah. And now young couples are having to spend up to 30 years paying off the mortgage when their parents only spent 20 years. So what is the comparison? Okay. So we have proposals. In PAR, we have proposals on how to bring down the cost of living. The first thing is, unlike other parties like the PSP or SDP who say, let's bring down GST from 9% to 7% or whatever, while I think that may be a good idea, but we are not even trying to be so ambitious. I think what affects most families are, and what is most effective is if you remove GST on the essential items like food and groceries, like healthcare, medical services, education. That really helps families. Yeah. And the other thing which we have proposed, and this does require a sea change in the attitude of Singaporeans, because Singaporeans have been conditioned by the PAP through 66 years of continuous rule to believe that nothing is free. Nothing can be free. And when you do propose something free, they think that you are mad. Well, I'm trying to persuade Singaporeans in this general election to change their way of thinking. And the reason is this. In our walkabouts, we have realized, especially when talking to young families, why is the TFR so low, 0.97, which is disastrous? And it will mean that we become extinct eventually as a people. It is because the cost of living just makes it impossible for them to have more children. All right? And a huge part of that are their worries about how they are going to fund their children's education up to university in future. All right? You may be very surprised if I were to tell you this. Our country is well placed to provide free education for every Singaporean child up to university. Okay? We are well placed. We are well placed to provide free healthcare for every Singaporean child. In fact, we are well placed to provide free healthcare for every Singaporean. And of course, I also want to provide free school meals for school children. Because, in this modern age, it is quite difficult often for a child to get balanced, nutritious meals because parents are working, they're always rushing off and things like that. And that has a great impact on your learning abilities and, your ability to absorb. Now, you will be surprised. I'm sure you'll be surprised if I were to tell you this. Right now, the government spends 10 million on 10 billion on education. The other monies are collected from the public because, the public now pays for school fees, pay for university fees for their children to go to university. All that is needed for free education up to university for every Singaporean child and young Singaporean is an additional 10 billion. All right, so 10 billion there. The government now about 15 billion on healthcare. Would it surprise you if I were to tell you that all that need to spend to give every Singaporean free healthcare is another 10 billion? So if you want to give Singaporeans free education and free healthcare, you need an additional 20 billion. And everyone is asking me like, I'm crazy. Where are you going to find the money? And I keep telling them, you do not take an extra cent. You do not have to dig the reserves. Where will this 20 billion come from? The first source, your CPF monies, the government invests. They say they get about 6% returns every year. What do they pay you? They pay you about 4%, all right? And sometimes they pay you 2.5% on the ordinary account. You know that there is a difference there between the 6% and what they pay you of 13.4 billion. 13.4 billion a year, all right? You take that money, put it towards free education, free healthcare. All you need to do is to find another 6 billion. Okay. All right. Where will that come from? Do you know that in 2024, the government transferred about $24 billion into special trusts and accounts or endowments, all right? And they say these are for future. We are the only country in the world that does that. This is not an approved IMF method of accounting. No one charges future expenses as current expenses as we do, okay? And the worst thing is, there is not even any openness about how those stored away monies are used. Yeah, they may come out in the accounts of various ministries, over the years, but it is like searching for a needle in a haystack. Yeah. should you not be open with Singaporeans about how those monies are used and accounted for? But you know what? There is 24, 25 billion there every year. If I'm the government, I will take part of that. I will put it towards free education. I will put it towards free healthcare. And one last part, your net investment return contribution, the NIRC. Right now, they insist on only using 50%. All right. They say the 50% must be salted away in the reserves. Why? Can it not be 60% that we use and we salt away 40%? Why are you so rigid on this figure of 50%? Because if you increase it to 60%, you get another $5 billion there. And who are we saving for, really? I mean, locally born Singaporeans are facing it because the TFR keeps plunging. So we really are sorting away for the citizens and foreigners become new Singaporeans in future. That is wrong because the money that goes into those reserves come from the present generation of Singaporeans. And you know what? It is the PAP talking out of both sides of their mouth. On one hand, they tell us you got to save for the future generations. On the other hand, they say every generation has got to be responsible for its own expenses. All right? It is talking out both sides of the mouth. But I'm telling you, my friends, the money is there. It is staring at us in the face. All right? And do not be so fixated with the PAP's way of how they use the budget. As I always say, I wish I had the chance to challenge Chia last night, because this is what I would, if he had rebuked me or whatever and said that I was, digging into the reserves, I would say, well, I am using the money to create the society I want. I reject the society that you want to create. Okay, to me, the budget is nothing more. And the analogy for me is this: you give the housewife a sum of money every month for meals, for food, and with that money, she has to decide what food to put on the dinner table for the family. All right, you want nasi lemak or you want pasta? She decide. Okay, but that is how she constructs the meals from the money she has. It's no different with the budget. With the budget we have every year, and I think our budget now is about 140 billion. We decide on our priorities. Where do we want to prioritize? The PA prioritizes in keeping a large part of the risks to the detriment of present-day Singapore who are suffering. All right. Yeah. And huge sums of money to when foreign students are heavily subsidized. That is wrong. So I hope I have you of what some of the policy measures PAR are pursuing. And yeah, that's a good part of our contract with Singapore.
Wow, that's excellent. And okay, because just now I had the chance of interviewing Steve Chia from SPPB, and I asked him what's the biggest problem facing Singaporeans today. He say is the cost of living. And then I asked him, so how does he intend to solve this problem? And he says, give more CDC vouchers, which I think is not really I mean, personally, I don't feel it's a good enough solution,
I think I mean, with no disrespect to Steve, I think that is a dreadful so-called solution. CDC vouchers are demeaning. CDC vouchers are no more than food stamps, which they repackage as CDC vouchers. And you give out food stamps in America. You give out food stamps to the destitutes, to the very poor who can't afford food. But that is where Singaporeans are now reaching. All right. And very often when you go out and you meet senior citizens, they're basically telling you that they have to live off the CDC vouchers today. Yeah. And for many of them, they've even had to cut down their meals from 3 to 2, and in extreme cases, even 1. That is how bad the situation has become. Yeah. And CDC vouchers are not the solution. We have to find positive ways to reduce the cost of living, which this government refuses to do. I tell you a very good way, I think, to reduce instantly the price of food. I would actually put a cap on the rentals. All right. I will not allow all these coffee shop operators, to increase the rental of stalls and all that. Yeah. There are two thoughts to it. Some will say this is free market and all that. I don't believe in that. There is no free market in the world without some form of government regulations and control. You want to talk about the HDB resale being free market, you can. But what is the condition there? The MOP is 5 years, right? So it's not like you buy something and you can flip the very next day. So if the PAP wants to talk about free market, you tell them, what about your HDB, in which you impose a myriad of conditions? And so why can't you do that with, food stalls, in coffee shops, all right, in hawker centers? We have to get control. We have to take control of our rentals. Our rentals are killing business, and it is increasing the cost of living tremendously.
Yes, I think the issue with the rentals came after Capital Land. Also, one of the reasons they have all the REITs and everything that makes it like a, financial market, and in a way indirectly caused the rental to go quite high. I still remember.
I think REITs has actually been one of the most disastrous policies pursued by the government. All right, it has turned us really into a rentier society, where basically the people with capital can just buy up properties, do absolutely nothing, and just live off the rent. That is the classic, definition of a rentier society. It's not productive. It's not productive. But all this stem from the neoliberals from the Reagan Thatcher era. All right, and the world was fixated, and very much in line with this was the idea of globalization, which came up in the round table yesterday. Yeah. And all of us are Singaporeans, all right? You would have known that until very recently, the PAP was going on and on about globalization. They thought there was nothing better than, globalization was the equivalent of the sliced bread. Okay. Yeah. But what they failed to see, and that was what I was trying to explain in the very first question that was posed to me last night at the round table, and which I was cut off because, they said my 1 minute was up. It would have been apparent to you that the world changed in 2016 with the Trump election and with Brexit, because globalization had created such inequality between the rich and the poor. All right. It was no longer sustainable. Yeah. But the PAP went on. And you know why? Because Trump was only a one-term president and Biden came in. And so globalization is very much this American phenomenon. And really for the last 45 years, starting with Reagan, Singapore has marched to the drumbeat of the Americans. Okay. Trump has upended that. He has changed that. But still, yes, the PAP refused to heed the warning signs. But, the real cut-off point came with the Ukrainian war. And Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, said, globalization is dead. All right, free trade is dead. And even Maurice Chang of TSMC said the same thing. All right, but our PAP went on, free trade, free trade, free trade. It is a totally different world. And yes, it's a solution to that. The solution to that. And last night, the WP talked about either CTPP or, all these long acronyms for, another treaty that links, I think, 27 countries together or whatever. Fine. I think the most immediate solution is that we must be able to trade more widely with our nearby neighbors like Indonesia, like Malaysia, like Thailand. And a new term now has come up. It's called localization. All right. So it's the nearby region that you must concentrate on. And I think that is very doable. And our SMEs should be encouraged to develop their business into the local regions. And which was why last night at the round table, I said, I want to promote the SMEs because they are the backbone of our workforce. 70% of our workforce are employed by the SMEs, but they are often let down by the government because of the scarcity of capital and the difficulty in them getting hold of capital. So I want a special SME bank set up, to finance them. Yes, I have gone on a lot, but that's my thinking.
Yes, I think and you have hit on many very good points. Like the SME is the backbone, is absolutely the backbone of every economy. And globalization, all these MNCs is actually killing local companies in a way because it's got a lot of unfair competition. I mean, to me, because they are so much bigger, right? But small companies have got the chance to cater to unique needs and so forth, and it's really allowing people to have control about their financial future and to build businesses and so forth. And I think Trump has done a good job in my view, right, to bring in business to America, to cut excess waste spending. I mean, just imagine how much we can cut if we have a Dodge in Singapore. How much can we save? And then we don't have to pay so much GST, carbon tax. I mean, do you have any views about all these like carbon tax and so forth?
I certainly have views about carbon tax, and some people may take objections to my views. But let me say this: I am very much in line with, conservation. All right, I believe we must protect our green spaces and all that. But you look at what the current PAP government has done. It is sacrilegious. They have cut down so much green spaces. All right, and yet a few years ago, Lee Hsien Loong told Singaporeans he wanted to spend $100 billion building this dramatic seawall against the rising sea levels and all that. Crazy. Now, but one thing I have believed in since 2011 when I was doing a mining business in Indonesia is this. And I had an Australian geologist who worked for me. And he explained the whole theory, and I understood it perfectly. I am a believer, like many people, including Trump, that what we are experiencing now in the weather patterns of the world is a natural cycle. The world goes through these natural cycles, all right? All right.
Absolutely.
You have the ice age, and then you have other ages and all that. So, I'm sorry, I am not a believer in the so-called global warming. I really am not. I really am not. Okay?
Yes.
And what was I about to say? And I really puke when I hear Grace Fu say, "Oh, our flooding is due to global." It's rubbish because Iris, I'm older than you, but I can tell you when I was growing up in Singapore in the 70s and the 80s, I saw even heavier rains. I saw rain. I saw rains that kept on for 3 days, and we didn't have this type of flooding. Why? Because urbanization was not so great then. We had a lot more green spaces and all that runoff areas, and now everywhere you go, I'm in the Paya Lebar area now. They were building around Cisco not too long ago. And just moderate rain, and then you find puddles of water everywhere. Yeah. It's because of the concretization of our city. So we have not planned well there. Yeah. In short, I'm not a believer in global warming. I think that we can do a lot more in terms of improving our drainage system. I was very surprised when Grace Fu said all she was prepared to spend, or what the government was prepared to spend, was another 250 million to upgrade the drainage system. The drainage system is pathetic in Singapore. It is grossly inadequate, all right? Because every time there's heavy rain, there is flooding, which never used to happen in Singapore.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes. So I mean, we are along the same line because just now PPP was talking about the carbon tax and how they are going to speak up about the carbon tax.
You
because
see, can I say something about the carbon tax?
Yes,
To
please.
me, it is nonsensical for Singapore to have such heavy carbon taxes. I
Yeah.
think we started off with $25 per ton, and
Yeah.
then it's going to go up to $60 per ton. I think
Yes,
is it
80.
this year or
Yeah.
next year? You know,
Yeah.
I'm not
Hopefully.
very accurate about that. But you know something, America is now pulling out of the Paris Accords. All right,
Yes.
and I think Italy wants to pull out of the Paris Accords, and Argentina wants to pull out of the Paris Accords. So all these are the big countries that really affect, you know, global climate. What is Singapore going to do? I mean, we are a tiny dot, all right? We are not
You
going to
should
be
pull out
able
too
to.
and save the money on the
We
carbon
can save
tax.
the money. Instead, the carbon tax, you know, gets passed down to the consumers at the end of the day, and that just
Exactly.
drives up the cost of living even further.
Exactly. I mean, it only to me enrich the elites and make the normal people and the poor even worse. It doesn't help the environment. That's what
Precisely.
I think.
I'm telling you, I'm not a fan of the Paris Accords. I tell you why. You know, the Paris Accords was driven by, amongst others, Al Gore, who became famous after he left the vice presidency and after he lost to George W. Bush in that dramatic 2000 election. And he went to found this movement, you know, that promoted weather change, global warming, and all that. And so, you know, you think, wow, this guy has gone from one extreme to the other, and now he's a goody two-shoe and all that. Until one day I read a report, I couldn't believe it. You know what is his monthly electricity bill? It's $38,000.
Oh, wow.
$38,000. I mean, how do you promote, you know, like conservation and all these things when your domestic electricity bill is $38,000? Right? I never listen to people talk about global warming if they fly by private jet and all that, because the carbon footprint is everywhere, right?
Yeah, that is the real hypocrisy of all these policies, right? Which are really bankrupting people. And I mean, there's already so many farmers standing up against this ridiculous carbon tax and all that, and Singapore still going in that direction. And I really hope that the government will pull out of this Paris Treaty also lah, and then not make life so difficult for all of us.
I think you see, to me, if the big countries like America pull out, Argentina is a big emitter of carbon, because you know one of the greatest sources of carbon emission is actually cattle, and Argentina is one of the world's largest cattle producers. So if all these countries pull out, I mean, why are we burdening our people with these huge carbon taxes? All right. I mean, if I'm the government, you know, I would seriously think of pulling out as well. I would basically say the substance of the Paris Accords has changed so dramatically without the participation of the US. I don't think it's worthwhile, you know, the other countries staying in. Yeah, we better go and renegotiate a new treaty. I'm not sure whether Trump will agree to it, because Trump is all for drill baby drill. You know, he wants to produce more fossil fuel. But we'll see. But without America, to me, the Paris Treaty is really irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question that I think is important for my group to ask you. They want to know, if you were to be elected, will you speak up about the Infectious Disease Act and the Coroner's Act and the vaccination things? Yeah, they want to know if you will be able to speak up for us.
Iris, I would be very honest with you. I do not know very much about the Infectious Diseases Act. It is not something I have paid a lot of attention to, unlike Seng and PPP. All right. I would need to study the act to understand its implications. I really do not understand all the arguments surrounding it. All right. I know Seng has dramatized it, or sorry to say, maybe I shouldn't use the word dramatize it, but he's very knowledgeable. I am not, you know. But I mean, I look at COVID now in hindsight, all right, and I think what was done was wrong, all right,
Yes.
because the studies or the reports that are coming out now paint a very frightening picture of the ill effects of the vaccine that was forced upon humankind. All right, that I am fully cognizant of, that I fully support. I think a lot of people are going to have to answer for it in the coming years. Yeah.
Yes.
But
And we hope that you can be one of the politicians who can help us to ask these questions in Parliament.
I certainly will, because I do not think that you can hide this under the blanket forever. In fact, there are already extensive lawsuits in other countries. Yeah. I think there's even a lawsuit in Malaysia, which I read about some time ago. I'm not very sure. But it's just a matter of time, Iris, and I'll say this to your followers, supporters as well. You're going to get more and more cases of people saying, look here, I never had these illnesses or cancers until I had the jab. And you're going to have, and then you're going to have people starting lawsuits. They're going to sue the government. And then in the lawsuits, the discovery will come out. You know discovery by now, right? I mean, in the common law, a very important process is discovery, where you have to disclose all the relevant documents, all right, you have. So eventually the truth is going to come out, okay? And I think it's not even going to be that far down the line. I think in a matter of 1 to 2 years, the world is going to know a lot more about the mRNA vaccines and things like that. I never took the mRNA vaccine. I took a vaccine, but I took the Chinese one. What was it called? Sino something, which was
Sinopharm, Sinovac.
I took Sinovac. I took the inert one because I myself, I was uncomfortable with the mRNA. I advised my son not to take the mRNA, but he went ahead. So, he's a grown up. I can't say anything, but I took only Sinovac. I didn't take mRNA because I read enough literature to make me concerned.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, so I'm glad that in fact I know you were part of a lawsuit to sue the government, right? Back in 2020.
I was in fact a group headed by Han Hui took out judicial review proceedings against the government over their controversial policy of not allowing people to go to the workplace if they were not vaccinated. So we said that was irrational. We mounted a judicial review challenge. And one of the principles of judicial review is, you can stop a decision or reverse it if you can show that that decision was irrational, unreasonable. And we thought, we used the government's own data against them. But then, they had all their experts and all that come out, and basically at the end of the day, the High Court and the judge went with their expert. So, what can you say? Yeah. But I was the lead counsel for that. And I thought that was a necessary challenge at that time.
Yeah.
But I think also, if I come back to your program in future, because I know actually, even though we failed, something happened after that, which was actually a positive for the group that challenged it. I can't quite remember what it was now. It's about 3 or 4 years ago now. So I'll have to refresh my memory. Okay.
Yes.
But you see, when you lose a lawsuit sometimes, but you believe in your conscience and in your principles, know that good has still been done. Has been done. Because, very often it takes the courage of human beings to keep challenging. All right. It's incremental. Every time you go to court, even though you may lose, you have advanced your cause a certain bit. And I tell you I give you 2 very famous examples in America. of how that eventually brought about great seismic changes in society. The first was a challenge mounted by a group known as the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, all right, the blacks. And of course, in the 50s, in the 40s, the discrimination against the blacks was so great, all right? There was desegregation of schools. Blacks went to black schools and white went to white schools. Blacks couldn't sit in the same section of the bus as the whites. That's why you had the famous Rosa Parks incident and all that. Now, the NAACP had a very tenacious lawyer by the name of Thurgood Marshall. And they started bringing lawsuits, all right? And they challenged the desegregation of the schools and the busing, Black students would be bused to black schools and all that. And they argued that that was discriminatory and against the American Constitution, which says everyone is equal under the law. Now, there were a lot of states in America that opposed the desegregation, that wanted separate schools, okay? And they relied on a century-old precedent, a legal case called Plessy against Ferguson, which introduced the incredible doctrine, separate but equal. So you can be separate but still be equal. And so they went to the Supreme Court and they challenged that, and they said Plessy against Ferguson was no longer good law, it was unconstitutional. And they won, And that was in 1954, and the case was a very famous one. It was known as Brown versus the Board of Education. Yeah. And you know what that did? That was the first step in this victory. And in 1965, Lyndon Johnson, the president after Kennedy, signed into law the Civil Rights Act, which gave all Americans, including Black Americans, absolutely equal rights under the American Constitution and law. So you see, you need to challenge, all right, every stage of the way. The other great example is with this judge, and you may have heard of her. She was very famous. She died a few years ago. Her name was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and she was a real advocate for women's causes, all right? Equality in employment, things like that. And she took up their causes, and she was losing all the battles. Every battle she fought was unsuccessful, but every battle she fought advanced the cause until eventually, again, great change took place. So, do not be fazed or disheartened if you lose, and tell yourself you've got to have some tenacity. You mustn't be foolhardy, but you have to have the tenacity to succeed at the end of the day.
Right. Yes, and I think, that's why I also sue them a lot lah, like with the HSA, the allowing Pfizer to advertise, even though I couldn't succeed, don't have the standing, but I think it was a necessary thing, because actually after that they took down their website also that was promoting, like, had all these different famous people promoting the vaccines, which to me that is a win, that was a win, even though it didn't go through, but I got what we want, which was to get them to take down that horrible website, plus to make them know that, they cannot do this. Cannot.
I mean, do not be foolhardy. Do not go around, with a machine gun spraying everywhere. You've got to pick your battles, all right? You've got to pick your battles and fight the battles that are worthwhile and will advance your cause, Very often when you start, the world is against you because people will think you're crazy. But, if you believe sufficiently in your cause, you will be able to last the distance. Yeah?
Yes. I just want to ask one more question before I go to where you're contesting and so forth. Okay. Of course, my group is called the Singapore Constitution and Policy Watch Group. Okay, SG Watchers. We have just started this group. It's on Facebook, and we really want to watch how the government, treats the constitution and policies. And of course, back in 2023, we're very shocked, right, that there was a bill. I nicknamed it the moonlighting bill because I was the one. I mean, I actually was at the nomination center and I wanted to object to Taman's candidacy, as president, because he was also a WEF board of trustees, right? So I mean, do you have anything to say about that? And like, do you think that this doing a retrospective bill, right, to address basically the issue that the president can belong to these foreign organizations, to me it's very, very wrong, because how do we know whether
I totally agree with you, Iris, and your followers on this. But you must have been elated by the recent news that Klaus Schwab, or whatever his name is, has now been forced to resign, right, from the WEF because of misconduct, over financial matters. And basically the board, including Al Gore, forced him to step down. But I think it is wrong. I think it is, I have made my position very clear from the start. I think it is wrong for the president of our country to be chairing committees, to be sitting on boards of all these WEF or whatever. I think Taman is even a trustee, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, he is.
He is a trustee. If you want to be the president of the country, you represent the country and you should not be doing outside work. I don't care about the PAP's argument. It brings prestige to the country and all. I say that's total rubbish. All right. Yeah. You represent, you see, many people don't realize this. What is a president? You see, we have the British heritage in us. All right. In Britain, they have the monarch. The monarch is the head of state. You see, you cannot have a head of state who's not a person. You've got to personalize that person. Yes. So there was a Queen Elizabeth, now you have a King Charles III. But do you find Queen Elizabeth or King Charles being trustee of the WEF or whatever? No. Because, their dedication is to their people, right? And so I can never accept this idea that Taman can be a trustee of the WEF. He can chair all these UN committees on water and all that. That's none of his business. If you want to do that, then don't try and be president of Singapore, okay?
Yeah, because the very worrying thing is that, all these policies in Singapore right now, it seems so much like globalist agenda, right? All these water tax, carbon tax, it's like straight off the book from these WEF policies. And I'm very, very concerned that they are being prioritized, like how come the government is formulating policies based on these WEF policies and not really looking at the real problems and to solve the problems that are like all the locals and all of us they are talking about it, and to us we have other ways to solve it, but they're not solving the way that we think is the commonsensical way to solve.
Yeah, my greater objection is this. You see, you cannot say that the work of some UN committee on water is just purely humanitarian or what. You see, when you go to that level, everything is political to me. Okay, there is a political connection. And so the president of a country should not be dabbling in the politics of whatever, whether it is his own country or other organizations outside of his country. All right. I think that's unbecoming.
Especially when they always say foreign interference, FICA here, FICA there. But at the very top is FICA, is already foreign intervention. Our president is sitting on all these foreign political parties.
I really have no respect for a lot of what the PAP says these days, if I have any respect. They talk about foreign interference. But who's the biggest foreign interferer in Singapore politics? Is this chap called the Critical Spectator, who's Polish.
Exactly.
And then you have Ho Ching sharing posts, I mean, come on, give me a break, all right? And again, PAP speaking out of both sides of their mouth, all right? And I don't understand why Shanmugam is not putting his foot down and saying, Critical Spectator, you keep out of Singapore politics, all right? Or the Prime Minister. And it's because Critical Spectator is the greatest admirer in the world of the PAP. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's like I mean, bootlicker lah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
have the way to say it, and it's like, are these foreign actors? Is he being paid to do all these things? And why is he dabbling and talking so much about our domestic politics? And of course, we know the recent saga, this whole Ching shared his post, right? And got
Yeah.
us almost in trouble with China. I mean, it's like, how ridiculous, and that is like foreign interference. I mean, why we even, that's like so bad, you're talking about a small little ant when what you're doing is so hugely wrong, right? And it's like really double standards.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyway, I think I have said enough, and I've given
Yes.
probably said too much tonight, but I hope it's been interesting for you and your supporters. And
Tell us.
I've been able to impart a bit of what PAR stands for.
Thank you. Okay, before you go, I want to tell everybody where PAR is contesting, and what other support and so forth that you need, so that if people can support you.
Okay, if I can be a bit indulgent here, I would really like your supporters and followers to support us in the following ways. On polling day, we need counting agents. All right, we need counting agents desperately to be at the counting centers to look at the count. All right. Polling agents we need as well, but the more critical one is the counting agent. Because in the counting center, everything happens in a blur. I've been inside there twice in my life. Everything happens in a blur. All right. And before you know it, the count is over. So we need to be very vigilant. All right. I expect the votes to be close this time. I am not one of those who thinks, I read a lot of comments in social media, oh, the PAP is going to win, and all that. I think Singaporeans are going into this election with a lot of anger, which I said at the round table last night. All right. There's nothing Lawrence Wong can change that anger. Okay. So I will not be surprised if the PAP does very badly in the popular vote on that night. Okay. Not surprised at all. I think the opposition is going to run the PAP very, very close in the popular vote. But we really would appreciate if people could help us as counting agents and polling agents. And of course, I would appreciate if people could donate to our campaign, because we are in the closing stretch now. We are always underfunded. But let me tell you the places where we are contesting. We are contesting first in Potong Pasir SMC, where I'm contesting. We are contesting in Jalan Besar GRC. We are contesting in Tanjong Pagar GRC. Jalan Besar is, of course, headed by Josephine Teo. Tanjong Pagar by Chan Chun Seng. We are contesting in Yio Chu Kang SMC, where Michael Fang is contesting. We are contesting in Queenstown SMC, where Mahmood is contesting. And we are contesting in Radin Mas SMC, where Umar is contesting. So we're contesting in 6 different constituencies. And let's see what happens at the end of the day. But I would really appreciate your help and your support for donations and for being our counting and polling agent on polling day.
How do you want people to get in touch with you if they want to, do the join your team to help your team in the various
I think there is a PAR email that is on our. There's a PAR email. I don't remember it offhand now, but I can get it for you, Iris, and maybe you can share it with your followers later. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think one of the easy way is you all know where Mr. Lim is on Facebook. You all can reach out to him also. He's got his Facebook account.
Yes.
And I think PAR also's got a Facebook page, right? So I think you all can go there. And as we come to this last stretch, I mean, I'm glad that you are in Tanjong Pagar where I am. I'm definitely not voting the whites. Okay.
Oh, I'm telling you, our Tanjong Pagar team has been amazing. I tell you, the way they have worked has been incredible, and they have worked very well as a team, you know. And Han Hui Hui, who's part of that team, has just been outstanding in terms of social media. And you know, her videos have been watched by like about 2.5 million people. It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I'm a proposer for Tanjong Pagar, and I also made quite a lot of videos like in the early days, but I want to help her make some more because you know she's a human rights activist.
I'm expecting very, very good results from Tanjong Pagar on that night. Not to say the others are excluded. I think Jalan Besar, we are going to do very well as well. You know, we have a very good team there. And they did a lot of work even before the elections. And they have
Yeah.
covered a lot of ground. So, yeah.
All right. Well, it's looking like a really exciting election, everybody. And please feel free to reach out to PAR especially if you live in those constituents. I'm sure you want that have the option of choice and so forth. I've invited the PAP to join me, but they have not accepted my invitation, maybe because I'm, you know, a nobody. So but anyway, doesn't matter. I'm so happy that you're here. And I guess that's the end for tonight. It was a very great chat talking to you, Mr. Lim. I wish you all the best.
Thank you
And
for
I hope that
really
we
appreciate
hope to put you in Parliament to
Okay.
speak for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night. Good
Thank
night.
you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. And I'll be locking out now. And please join our Facebook page. Okay, let me just play the last video. You can go to SG Watcher. We have actually a page as well as a group. The group is a special, like we want to make sure that people who are commenting are Singaporeans, because in my past, when I've joined those Singaporean Facebook groups, I don't even know whether the people commenting are real Singaporeans or they are so-called IBs, okay? Internet Brigade. So we are starting this Facebook group, which we want to, as much as we can, right? Have genuine Singaporeans speaking up and start engaging in real policy discussions, as well as discussions about our constitutional rights and important issues in Singapore, because Q&A. Yeah. Okay, we can stay. I mean, but I'm not a politician, so I don't know whether I can answer your questions. Okay, but what I want to say is that please join our group, because we hope that these elections can just be the start, okay, of real civic consciousness, real interest in nation building, and it comes from the laws that we are looking over. And I think it's high time we discuss and we watch over the policies that are shaping the country, that these lawmakers are making, because we got to check the checker. I mean we got to check them, right? Yes, thank you, everybody. Where I really believe that the power to a better society begins with all of us as a grassroots movement, right? Yeah. Okay. Yes, no, I don't know whether, is Mr. Lim still here?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, okay. Yes. What's the Q&A? Flip Fish, do you want to unmute yourself so that you can ask your questions? I don't know whether I'm able to make him. I think you're from Jalan Besar, am I right? Flip Fish? Okay, I don't know how I'm okay. Okay, can you type your question in the webinar chat? Questions. You know your party. Okay, question to PAP. You know your party is unpopular. There's a 50. Okay, actually, I won't answer that. Okay. Flip Fish, how can we make him go unmute himself? Is it possible? Too many. 9 questions too many lah. Okay, let me just go through the most expensive. Okay, that one I think more or less. Okay, there's one question. PJ Tam challenge to get POFMA or Madam Ho Ching's salary cannot happen because the PAP will rule that there is no public harm. Joke, only PAP harm will get POFMA. Okay, I am not sure whether it's a comment or a question. Okay, are you able to type your question, Flipfish, in the comment? Don't use the Q&A box, use the main box. Is that okay, so that everybody can see? Q&A. Okay. All right, Flipfish, question to PAP. You know that your party is unpopular. Does a 51% win really mean a win? What about the other half of unrepresented? So are you asking to answer for PAP or what? Or you want him to answer as a opposition regarding the 51%? Yeah, do you have anything to say, Mr. Lim?
You see, if let's say on election night, the PAP gets 51%, or, even below 50%, let's say they get 49%, but they still have the majority of the seats. Are the Singaporeans going to accept that? Well, under the Westminster model of government, which we, employ, of course, they can form the government. But then I think the public pressure will be for systemic reform to our representation. All right, because even now, the opposition enjoys about 39-40% of the votes as of GE 2020. But the PAP commands 89% of the seats. Where is the fairness in that? Which is why I have been an advocate right from the start for proportional representation, which is the system enjoyed by most European countries, by most advanced Nordic countries like Finland, Norway, whatever. Yeah. What we have now in Singapore is what is known as first past the post system. It is old British system, which the British still employ in their parliament. But, even the British are now starting to discuss the possibility of proportional representation because they realize that first past the post is going to be unrepresentative. Okay? Now, I would love to have a situation this year where on election night, the PAP actually loses the popular vote. And don't count that out, all right? I have told some very close friends that is actually the scenario I foresee, okay? They may have the most seats at the end of the night, but do not be surprised if the PAP's popular vote goes below 50% this time. And then I think on the 4th of May, Singaporeans are going to wake up and they are going to say, look here, we are not going to accept this system. Okay?
Well, can you explain a little bit what you mean by popular vote?
You see, the popular vote means we have 2.7 million voters, right? If they get less than 50% of the 2.7 million, let's say they get 1.2 million or they get 1.3 million, because half of 2.7 is 1.35. If they get less than 1.35 million votes, they would have lost the popular vote, right? Okay? Yeah. But
okay.
they still get the most seats and form the government because of all these GRCs and all that. Will Singaporeans accept that? I think then the pressure will mount on Lawrence Wong to call another election very soon to try and clarify and resolve the problem.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, okay, we have one last question from Flipfish. The Singapore public is totally uneducated about civic politics, thus it can never become a first world nation. What do the PAP mean by we are not populists?
You see, what the PAP is saying, and it is total rubbish. I see in social media, even some quite respected commentators, I won't name them. Oh, the first thing that he's a populist. Like they call me a populist. I don't think populists are bad. I don't think populism is bad. In fact, populism is now returning to the fore, all right, in world politics. You not only have America, what is happening in America, You look at Xi Jinping in China. Xi Jinping is a populist by any measure of the word. You look at Erdogan in Turkey, he's a populist. You look at Modi in India, he's an acknowledged populist. A populist simply means someone who listens to the will of the people, all right? Who does things in accordance with the wishes of the people. The reverse of that is the PAP brand. I do not know what type of politics you want to call that, where they think that only the elites and the very highly educated are allowed to decide for the rest of the country. All right? To me, that is totalitarian, that is undemocratic. Yeah, it is 1,000 times worse than being a populist. I do not see anything wrong in being populist. If you want to talk about populism being actions that, please the people, you can say exactly the same of the PAP. What are they doing by giving out CDC vouchers, all right? Or giving out cheap groceries, $1, and then you go away with $25 worth of groceries, and even during election time, all right?
Ice cream.
Unlawful.
They give out ice cream.
Or ice cream, all right?
Eggs
Is
and
that
fish.
not all populism at work? All right. So don't come and teach us what populism is. And populism to me is not a dirty word. In fact, you are not going to be able to resist the type of populism this century because of social media, people becoming more educated, people want to be heard, people are not willing to be dictated to by a bunch of elites and SEF scholars or brigadier generals. Okay?
Wow, fantastic. Well, I really enjoy tonight, and I think it's so nice to be able to talk to candidates who are going to stand for election and to really have this, I would say this is a very frank and candid conversation so that people will know who you are and what you stand for. And I think this is absolutely very important. And so I hope everybody else is enjoying this as much as I am, because I intend to have this more often. I don't know whether I'll have a chance to do it again before, and then we have this stupid cooling off day, which actually completely doesn't make sense at all. And but anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. It's been awesome. It's the first episode of Beyond Ice Cream. Let's talk policies. And please do what you need to do and vote wisely on polling day. And I hope that Singapore will start a new chapter in its history where people will be heard and policies will follow more the will of the people. Okay, and then with this, I will be logging off for tonight. And thanks for joining us. Remember to join our Facebook group. Okay. Thank you all. Okay, I'll just play this video.
This is how you make me feel. This is how you make me feel. Oh, good, oh, great sunshine. Oh, baby, this is how you make me feel. And I feel good.